Hello, this is the November chat with fans. I guess for people watching this live, I'm still working with the timing and everything. I'm trying to push every live stream event kind of forward half an hour every time. That way, if it gets disrupted, I'm kind of testing the waters on this. Not too much as far as announcements. I lost about a week and a half, maybe something around there. Mold returned to this apartment, but I immediately went, besides just cleaning everything, bought a dehumidifier. I basically I was getting out of the house as much as I could during that time because the air, I had nowhere to run to at this time. Last time I was able to run in my living room essentially, and it never affected the bedroom. So have a dehumidifier. After hammering it for days, that seems to have cleared everything. I'm still having to run it every single day. The humidity was something like 80%. And we have a dryer this time, so I'm not drying my laundry in here. It's just, I don't know how everything's designed. But, so anyway, I'm behind where I wanted to be. However, Freeman's Mine is next, all right? I still have to, you can see I still don't have a curtain in the back. I need to fix that. Basically, I need to treat things a little bit more for Echo than it's, Freeman's gonna be like a train, all right? It's not gonna be like as fast as possible, but it's just gonna be, it's just gonna be, I think I'll have like a Christmas game dungeon and some miscellaneous stuff I'll work in that has no real deadline, just whenever it happens. Other than that, it's just going to be like Freeman's Mine. So that's what you can expect for the future. Hopefully it should happen this month. I want to say almost for certain I'll be done with an episode except for sound effects this month, which I usually get help with. So I never want to promise time dates. But if that happens, I'll announce it on Twitter and I'll just move on to the next one. So, let's see what. Oh yeah, I was gonna have because I'm still catching up on everything. I was gonna do start doing the game sessions with fans again, but again, I'm still trying to work out the timing to see what disturbs my neighbor and what doesn't. So at some point, I want to have At some point, I want to have like everybody joins who has the game with the crew, and then we'll just do sort of a tour of some of the locations in the game. I don't want to do that this time yet because ideally I'd like to have that closer to a time that more Americans can be online. So we'll see how that goes. So I'm stalling that for now, even though Thanksgiving weekend would be pretty appropriate time for it. What I'm gonna do instead, this one won't be really. This one won't really be with fans. However, you're welcome to join. I'll respond to people while I'm doing it. Since it's after Halloween, a whole bunch of people replied to one of the Halloween Sampler 2 that, I should mention the Lecarde Chronicles because those are the sequels to Haunted Castle 3. I tried playing the first one like several months back, like maybe the beginning of the year or something like that. And I ran into so much resistance in the gameplay, I realized, I'll explain it more when I do it, but this would be perfect for me to stream. Now, I've heard some people say they don't like watching people stream who aren't like really good because it's frustrating for them to watch. If you're like that, you're gonna want to skip this. However, if you're the sort of person who just, enjoys watching people suffer at games and video games, then yeah, you should join in for that one. I'll have the date on that in the video description. I think it'll be like next weekend. So you'll see what I mean when I start playing it. I'll do that for a little while. This is just sort of an extra thing. Let's see. I don't think I have any other announcements really. I mean, just some behind the scenes stuff in the movie. Oh yeah, the website's still not completed just because I need to follow up on some stuff, but it's mostly there. There's a few minor things. Somebody's saying how long will we streaming. I'm guessing every 2 hours, maybe a little less, something around there. It's huge. It's like I never even had a goal. Like if people ran out of questions after half an hour, I'd probably just stop. But I usually try. I usually feel my energy depleting from doing this sort of thing for about 2 hours. Yeah, so that's sort of where it's settled. Uh, but oh yeah, so the website's not done, but it's slowly getting there. Once it's done, I'll mention it, and I'll be more open for feedback on it, and for maybe changes to have. There's still something bigger with it coming. I don't want to say soon because it depends on more than just me, so I can't give predictions. But hopefully soon. That when that happens, that'll get its own video. But let's see. I mean, for now, it's basically the same website. A couple things are missing, but it should be more friendly with technology of 2018. That's all I can remember for announcements. So not too much right now. I guess I'll go to questions then. Again, I do the questions everybody votes on first, and I take live ones at the end. So let's see. And I have to look up the questions. I haven't looked at all of them. I looked at the first few days ago, and then catch up on the others. So and I noticed on Reddit somebody photoshopped me to look like He-Man out of, what was it, Prince Valiant or something? Geez, I forgot He-Man's real name. I'm sure the chat will correct me on that. Oh wait, no, that's the Discord. But yeah, I don't really look like He-Man in the picture. Oh, come on. Yeah, see, if I was more prepared, I would have had this pulled up. All right. Whoa. Come on. All right. Pull this here. Pull this. Yeah, I guess when I do these things, these are one of the times that I wouldn't mind. Okay, somebody's saying Prince Adam for He-Man. Somebody's saying, should they go to bed? Well, this will be on YouTube, so. Okay. No, it's the wrong thread. Okay. This one. Oh, okay. The order changed here. Will there be dwarves in the movie? Well, again, I don't want to reveal too much, but I'll no, but it takes place in a world where they exist, and I would like to do much more with dwarves eventually in the videos. So, no. So yeah, that's probably gonna be a disappointment for people right there. But it's my plans are even more ambitious for dwarves. That's and to the movie. The movie is more attainable. That's the. So I gotta start off. I gotta have some awareness of my own limitations. Because I have to do the dwarves justice. I can't just. I can't just throw them in there. Well, I mean, I did do that in Galaxy Gulp, but if we're going all out on dwarves, then no, it needs to be done right. Okay, next question. How do you feel about Nintendo winning the case against ROM sites? And they give a link. Yeah, my first reaction to this was already, because I heard about that just like a couple months ago, then bam, settled in court, done. So, yeah, that is speedy justice, I guess. As for my thoughts, yeah, what happened was, one of these sites were hosting all their ROMs. Nintendo finally got, I think they were hosting them a long time, I think. But Nintendo got wind of it, sued them for $12 million and won. And they'll probably settle for less than that. And I'm sure these people don't have anything close to 12 million. So they'll probably go bankrupt or however that works. As far as what I think about it, I think it's like the whole thing's a mess because it's like neither side is really in the right or the wrong on this completely. Because, like, okay, so for Nintendo's defense, they're hosting pirated games that they're trying to sell. So, yeah, sue them, shut them down. Yeah, you could argue that's excessive, but I guess it's like a punitive damages thing. They're trying to scare everybody else from doing it. And in their defense, I'm sure they're hosting games Nintendo's not selling anymore. So, some of them. So it's kind of getting into the gray area. It's like, well, maybe the law should kind of cover more of this. But the thing is, though, if you're hosting something like Super Mario Brothers or, Mega Man or Legend of Zelda, you should kind of be, battle ready for this sort of thing, have that hosted in another country where they can't even get your ID or there's no jurisdiction for this sort of thing. Because you should basically expect them to come after you if you're going to do something like that. That's why this is such a kind of a flawed champion of this cause, is because I'm totally on the side of game preservation, but at the same time, if you're doing stuff where you can still buy the game, like a form of it, and it's very well known, and they're known to come shut everybody down, it's kind of, you can't say you didn't see that coming. So, of course, I don't think they should be owed $12 million, but I don't know. It's, yeah, see, somebody's mentioning torrents. See, torrents would probably be ideal for that because, see, where torrents fall short is where the stuff's too obscure for people to keep it on their system or care, and it just gets lost due to obscurity. But for Nintendo games, yeah, I'm sure there's dozens of people who would keep all the games hosted 24 hours a day. Probably are right now. So yeah, torrents would probably been a smarter way to handle that. Is there a way to ask questions so Ross can see them? Yeah, what happens is I occasionally glance at the chat, and but at the end, you can ask. Well, yeah, if you want to ask a question that you'll be sure I see it and eventually get a response from, that's email. But if you want to do it sort of a live response, then just check back in an hour and a half or something like that. Yeah. So, it's kind of a mess. It's the sort of thing where, how there's I think there's statutes of limitation on a trademark where, if you don't use it within a certain years, then you lose the trademark. You don't lose your rights, you just lose the trademark. It seems like, there should be kind of a law where, if you're not selling it past X number of years, it should enter public domain, you think? I think that would be not the intellectual, but they could still retain the rights, but that specific game, if you haven't used it if you haven't sold it or made it availably sold in X number of years, then it seems like then that should default to, I guess, some sort of freeware. I don't know. It gets complicated, but the thing again, my first reaction, it's all a mess. So, yeah, that's this way to sum it up. Okay, this one. Ross, you said before your main political stance is survival of humanity. Do you think modern capitalism is incompatible with that goal? Automation, carbon emissions, etc. Okay, this one's going to be a long answer. I wrote down some notes for this one. Let's see. Yeah, in my political stance, survival of humanity is the first point. A close second is making sure as many people as possible meet their basic needs, food, shelter, reasonably long life, and keep it sustainable. So after that, my ideology, it's much more flexible. For those, I'm very, no, this is right, this is kind of wrong. But, if those are being met, then, it's flexible. Okay, so, yeah, in fact, yeah, again, this one's going to be a long one. So, and I'd like to point out, people voted on this question. This was the third most voted one on In fact, I don't even know how this works because the dwarf question got, wait, no, okay. Yeah, this got more points than the dwarf question or the Nintendo one, but it got sent down. So I don't know how Reddit's thing works, but so yeah, I'm not trying to bring this in your face or anything, but this is what people want, so sure. If you just want to skip through this and go to more of the fun questions, I'll do like this gesture at the end, you know, sort of like field goal kind of thing. So if I do that, if you just want to browse through, then if I'm holding this, then you know I'm done with that question. All right. So yeah, this is one I sort of avoid for two reasons. One is that for some people, this is a religious question because, you know, it's like their faith, the evidence doesn't matter either way. They just, once they hear certain words, their brains just sort of shut off and they kind of parrot out certain lines. And they're not really interested in the discussion or the truth or like, oh, some points are accurate, some points are, yeah, you know, these are wrong, that sort of thing. It's just, you know, I'm not really interested in those kind of discussions where it's just like one-sided, whatever, you know. And the other is, if I'm going to answer this question, I don't want to do it halfway, meaning so it's not the sort of thing to like get my full view. You're not going to get it in like a sentence or just like a soundbite or something. So let's see. So you voted for it. I can burn time on the video chat. So sure, we'll do it. This might be a little bit like, and from my stance, this might be a little bit like explaining viruses in the Middle Ages when, you know, when it's understanding within like the four humors or something where it's like, well, what? You know, it doesn't seem to line up so neatly, the stuff at the time. So the short answer is yes, but it's more complicated than that. So I'll just go with, first I'll explain why I think yes, and then I'll explain why it's more complicated. Yes is because it's best to break it down like a logic problem. You know, so I mean, because basically logic is infallible. So if you get the wrong conclusion from your logic, that means your assumed truths were flawed. So, but if your assumed truths are completely solid, then your conclusion is completely solid. So the reason I'd say yes is because capitalism is amoral, not immoral. I mean, it can be, but amoral, meaning it's not concerned with right or wrong. It's about, you know, ownership of property, you know, buying and selling things on a free market, everything. It's just a system, an economic system. However, part of that, for survival of humanity, part of that is basically having a balance with the ecosystem, not eradicating it. You know, because if you eradicate it, then that threatens survival of humanity. And that's not really a part of capitalism. You know, it's just not really part of the equation. It's just, you know, supply and demand. Okay, somebody's saying personal attacks in the chat. Yeah, you talk. I mean, yeah, try to don't insult each other, but you can discuss what you want civilly in the whatever in the chat. That's fine. Let's see. Yeah, and I'm sure I'm probably gonna get a lot of comments and emails on this once I'm done. So yeah, okay. So yeah, the incentives of capitalism are basically profit. You know, just that's the main thing. You know, how can you make money? And the thing is, they'll use whatever resources they have. Okay, and I gotta check my notes because see, there's no way I was gonna make my way through this without notes. Okay, yeah. So for order of humanity to survive, preserve part of the ecosystem, part of that is restraint. Capitalism, I mean, restraint is not really capitalism's thing. You know, that means not harvesting as many resources as possible. Preserve large portions of the ecosystem that could readily be monetized or turned into money. That's not its really steering direction. I mean, it's all about making more money or growth, expanding. You know, that's the core of what it's about. I mean, the people can do that, but the pressure is you can very frequently make more money in the short and medium term by not doing that. So there's always a pressure against it. Like say, you know, I own like 100 acres of forest. well, that would be good for the ecosystem and general balance of things if I just kind of leave that mostly untouched. Or maybe I make a little bit of money on it by having a park or something, a mission for the park. Or I could clear cut that sucker, make money on all the lumber, maybe even use some of the soil and sell that as fertilizer, then bring in cattle and make even more money raising the cattle there, and then should sell the thing to somebody else and they'll run the cattle. So I might make 10 times the amount of money or more compared to nothing if I just left it there, or, just some money if, I have like a light touch sort of thing. So it's that incentive across just everything, really. The more, now you need some destruction of the environment and things like that just for basic humanity to live, or just basic development or civilization. So again, it's a question of balance. Where there's capitalism, it's not really about balance. It's just how can you make a buck? So let's see. Lost my place again. Yeah, I guess going back to the, you can be more reasonable about that. There was a perfect example of this sort of thing. I think the CEO of Whole Foods was trying to practice something. It was something like conscientious capitalism, where, he would, it was still completely capitalist, but he tried to be fair to the workers, the working environment, everything. And of course, he got bought out by Amazon and sold off, and now everybody's saying it's bad. So that's a perfect example of how this thing can sort of work. You can have great intentions, but there's a constant pressure in the other direction. Okay. And like the main rebuttal I've heard to that is that, people would be rational and realize they would stop after a point that, this is going to threaten, where I live in the long-term environment. Well, again, the evidence doesn't lend itself to that the majority will do that. Like the most powerful forces tend to not do that. And you can, because we're in the evidence right now. We're swimming in capitalism. Like any metric you can look at, that statistic in the A New Beginning video, where I said like over 50% of, that I found that over 50% of the wildlife has been wiped out since the 70s. That was a couple years old. They just updated that like a month or two ago. It's up to 60% now. So since the 70s, we have 60% total wildlife. Like this is like fish, land mammals, amphibians, and birds, all that. That should be like a big warning sign, like, we're kind of going too far now. And another is, let's see, my notes. Oh yeah, now this one you can kind of fact check me. I think before, like basically, certainly before industrialization, but the development of like real human development, I think it was something like, we have about basically half the forest cover we're used to. So we've had basically deforestation of half, humanity has had the effect of deforestation of half the earth. So that's not, and I think I've read that like the coral reefs might actually get killed off in our lifetimes. I'm not sure. That one's more speculative. These others you can kind of verify. In order to say like, no, you're wrong, Ross, capitalism isn't a threat, you got to prove how capitalism is preventing that from happening. And I'd say it's not. It's kind of accelerating it. I don't remember. I know I read this before. It can actually incentivize it, even when you see another argument might be that, once things get scarce, then capitalism values that more, so then we pull back. It's like, well, not necessarily. It just finds a way to make a profit. Sometimes that means pull back. A lot of times it doesn't. Like, again, somebody's gonna have to fact check this or not fact check this. I'm sure it happened, but get the specifics. There was a case in California, I think it's still going on, where this aquifer was depleting, where the people get a lot of water from, and a lot of the farmers were sharing the water. So what you would do, like a reasonable person would do, they think, oh, maybe we should put in some more drought-resistant crops and kind of ration things out. But the exact opposite happened, where the farmers were well aware of this, so they started planting water-intensive crops. I think they were using like cashews or some sort of nuts that use a lot more water, because the scarcity was causing the value of those nuts to go higher. So they can make more money by just going through as much of that water as they can right now. So when you have an incentive, when you have just a constant incentive like that, yeah, it's going to cause problems. And take it, expand it far enough, it causes much bigger problems. See, the thing is, for most of human history, we didn't have the technology or the numbers of humanity for this to be such a huge impact that's actually threatening us. Because, sure, we could just, raise and burn like a small area like the size of a city. That's not going to do much to the total environment, like globally. I mean, it was just like a small blip. So again, it's about balance. So I don't see how capitalism, again, that's my conclusion. So, if you want to attack me on this, attack me on my premises that capitalism isn't really about limitations. It's about making profit. Part of that is burning through all the resources, and you need restraint and balance of resources for long-term survival. So since it's not doing that, I'd argue it's a threat or an impediment to survival of the species. So that's the part if you want to attack me, attack that part. Okay, somebody's asking a cool question about stereo 3D and Vorpex. Ask me again towards the end, because I am interested in that too. Okay, so that's the answer to my yes part. Now, actually, I wanted to bring this up because there was a critic here who I think was the kind I was talking about, where it's probably more religion for them, but yeah, they're quoting all these, have a bunch of like Cato Institute citations, but he was saying that I think he was trying to credit capitalism also with development of technology, science, democracy, and just have it. No, it was all capitalism did all that. And he's saying we'd all be in mud huts without it and everything. Now, it does bring up a point that computers, I think there's a strong argument to make computers would probably not be as far along without capitalism. And for that extent, video games. Because that's one area where it's been hyper competitive. And like the profit incentive aligns with the development of the technology almost perfectly. So there have been just resources thrown at that incredibly. But, under another system, you might not have like the same sort of population problems, or, you might have less homeless, that sort of thing. But no, I think there's a strong case to make computers wouldn't be as far along at this point without capitalism. So, again, that's why I like to go point by point on things, because, it's rarely something where it's like 100% right or wrong. But he brings up something that I kind of want to address this, because I've heard this point brought up like 100 times, and I've never seen a rebuttal to it, whereas to me, the answer is obvious. I'm sure somebody else has had this thought. So you're welcome, if somebody else hasn't published it first or something, you're welcome to steal this argument from me. Let's see, where is it, what he says? Yeah. Let's see, standards of living. Yes, standards of life, living, life expectancy, wages have also gone up. Like basically the argument is capitalism has lifted more people out of poverty than anything else. I mean, than under any other system. That could be true. I haven't checked that. But if that's true, let's see, let me check my notes here so I say this right without as much stammering here. Yeah, okay, yeah. That's probably true, but during that time, we've also had greater extraction of resources than any other time in history. So you can have the most inefficient system in the world, but if you just expand it to just an immense degree, then even the crumbs falling off of that just end up bigger and seem better. And there's a real world analogy to this. As in software, I mean, it's probably less prevalent than it used to be, but it used to be you could have incredibly inefficient software that would just be really slow to run just because of just terrible programming practices. But the thing is, we knew faster computers were coming, so they would just throw it in there and, you know, expect time to sort it out, or just, okay, just whatever, type the code, it worked technically, terribly inefficient, it's slow, but you know what? Processors are gonna be doubling their speed in 2 years anyway, so just go for it. Like, in fact though, with Windows, I think when they released, I think up until Windows 7, every version of Windows would use more resources. And when they started releasing netbooks, which needed like to be more power efficient, they scaled those down to XP because like with Vista, they just couldn't do it. So it's kind of like that, except imagine that practice, but now you're on like a laptop or a phone or something where it using that extra processing power burns through your battery power faster. So then it's like the efficiency literally means you last longer. So yeah, that's the, so, you know, if you're extracting all the resources, that's kind of, in my eyes, that's like borrowing from the future. Especially if you're taking non-renewable resources or cutting out, you know, burning up like renewable ones. Again, like taking out a forest or something, because you can make more money in the short term. So yeah, you can have things be much more prosperous during that time block, but then afterwards, it's far worse than before you started. So it depends on what time scale you're looking at. So, I mean, so yeah, a lot of people could have been lifted up by poverty, but then once you start running drier on resources, then it can get so much worse. So yeah, you could have a few decades where everything's just great or better at least, and then skip ahead 100 years, oh man, now it's wasteland. So, and then massive death afterwards. So, well, we'll see. But yeah, I did want to bring up that point because again, I've never seen anyone bring up that point. It's like, well, yeah, we're burning through resources incredibly. All right, so I should keep moving. Okay, so now that's my reasoning for the yes model. So again, if you want to attack my analysis, go ahead. But again, look at the logic I'm using with it. Now, why am I saying it's more complex than that? I actually thought about doing a video on this, Ross Rants, but never really got my thoughts together enough on it to make it like entertaining. So you're going to get most of what I would have written. I'd say that, well, I think capitalism accelerates it because it puts an obvious incentive for using as many resources as possible. The same will be true, like you come to the similar places for any system that doesn't prioritize, you know, balance with the ecosystem, you know, for making things, or just making things sustainable in general. Like, okay, like I've heard some people say like, you know, okay, if we didn't have capitalism, like what would succeed it? One answer I've heard floated around a bunch is syndicalism. The idea is there would be no the idea of syndicalism is it's pretty similar, except there's no distinction between worker and owner. So like if you're just the janitor at a company, you have a say in the company, you have a vote. And that would solve some problems. Like we probably would have less wanton local pollution if you had something like that. Like I think what was it? Is it DuPont? They're the ones that have been polluting like the Ohio River for like decades now. But because under capitalism, you can have the decisions made by people who don't even live in the same area, but they just own the facilities. Whereas if under syndicalism, you wouldn't have that. So the people working there also, most of them also own it. So they're not going to want to pollute where they live. So that solves some problems, but it doesn't, again, as long as the incentive to have balance with the ecosystem isn't there, I think you'd have a lot of the same problems because They might be perfectly fine with like my ranching example. It's like, well, we're going to cut down this forest, but then we're going to have, grazeland, and we're going to have a fair distribution of the profits. And you know what? That could even accelerate it, because you would probably have a fair distribution of income under syndicalism, which means more people could be prosperous in the short term, which means they're going to be using more resources. So that might actually accelerate the trend to have more resources, burn through more resources. So another system may not necessarily solve it unless it prioritizes preservation of a certain level of the environment, or where it's just sacrosanct that you can't go past this point, or we try to get resources under the resource consumption under this level. Again, it's easy to point at capitalism and say, oh, that's the problem with everything. Well, no. And this is going to lead to the thing I almost did a video on. I think with humanity in general, there's two really big flaws it has that kind of prevents us from kind of solving deeper problems. The first is individually we're fine at this, but collectively we are terrible at dealing with long-term problems that aren't on our doorstep. They're a ways into the future. It just kind of works against the sort of collective, lowest common denominator psychology. If you want an easy example of something like that, a classic example would be let's say a meteor is coming right towards Earth, but we've spotted it 10 years out. If we prepare for that now, send a rocket to deflect the course. Okay, that's what I was getting at. Is some problems can't be solved. A lot of problems can be solved as a reaction to things, because humanity is pretty great at solving problems as a reaction. Oh, the invaders are here. Well, we got to fight them or flee, then come back and take them out. Oh, the forest is on fire. Oh, we got to put it out. Humanity is fantastic at banding together for immediate threats. So sorry to bounce around on my thoughts here. Now you know how I think. But if it's something that's coming, but it's not coming anytime soon, but it's going to be an enormous problem, some things we can still deal with that. Others, again, if you wait until it's on your doorstep, you're dead, or the problem never gets solved. And again, with capitalism and free market stuff and many other systems, they don't deal with that. Again, now going back to the meteor, if we wait until a meteor is so close that we can't ignore it, then we're dead. There's nothing we can do. But again, if we spotted it 10 years out, we could launch a rocket at it, get the trajectory right, or hey, have a backup rocket or a third one, and then explode it so it descended off course. It never happens because we had the foresight to do it. And to be clear, that's one I think could be solved under capitalism, because there's no big profit incentive not to do that. So that's one of humanity's constant problems throughout history. I think that's one that can be solved, though, if you have the right leadership, where whoever's making the decisions has a very strong sense of that or the people making decisions. Because look, the vast majority of humanity, they go with the flow. They're gonna kind of just, they want a cheeseburger, and if they could just kind of meet basic needs, kind of have barbecues, kind of be all right, then they're gonna be fine. So whatever the system incentivizes, that's what they're gonna be steering towards. So it's at the top, the decisions that are being made, that's where it becomes more important. So that's a problem that keeps resurfacing again and again. However, I think that's solvable. Now the problem I do not know how to solve, that is the bigger one. I've sort of contemplated this before, how would you fix all the world's problems? This next one is the roadblock I keep running into again and again, and I don't have an answer. So it kind of shows the limitations of my own, brain power here. The second one is, I think humanity is extremely poor at controlling its worst elements. So people who are like high functioning psychopaths or outright saboteurs, or also people who are in positions of power but are delusional to the point where evidence no longer convinces them. Like, I mean, because I mean, you can just have the wrong ideas at something, but then you hear it out like, no, man, you're listening, all these things you thought you knew were wrong. This is what the reality is. Like, oh, a reasonable person can, change their stance or their assumptions if they have better information. But like a completely deluded person can't. And by psychopaths, I mean somebody, who literally has no conscience. Like it's, so, like compassion or guilt, it's just literally not part of their capacity. So with that, if you have like, low-level functioning ones, the police are usually pretty good at handling those, But the people who are very skilled at that sort of thing, at functioning in society, they can bring down civilizations. Because, it's like they can work on like forming like messages that are spread across many different avenues, or, use mass media to send a message. Yeah, to sort of cultivate over time to make people think that, because let's say you had the perfect system where it's utopia. We're in perfect harmony with the balance. Everybody's getting fed. We're still developing technology. We're covered, for under any scenario. We have backup plans. Well, what do you do then to stop somebody who's thinking, you know what, this would be better if I could have even more? And so they start kind of cultivating like these lines of thoughts to sort of undo all the progress that you've done. And of course, it's not going to catch on immediately because people think it's great. But then you find some other like-minded people or people you can kind of convince over. And then you kind of get together. And then you maybe start writing some books on the topic. And then like, hey, get into political power positions. And, just try to influence things slowly. And again, most people are going to go with the flow. Like, you can't do this all at once. It takes a long time, but then you can like gradually sort of shift the views. Like, again, like with games, I mentioned the Overton window, right now, like, okay, so if you start off being anti-utopia, yeah, that's not going to be popular at all. But then if you kind of give counter arguments, which the arguments themselves may have plenty of merit, but then they don't have merit within the wider scope of things. Like if you look at everything, then you realize, oh, well, it might be more important to, sure, we should want you to have some more, but if you're gonna cut down like this part of the forest that we've already designated that this is necessary to maintain the ecosystem, well, okay, a little bit doesn't matter, but but if you're doing it a lot, well, that kind of mentality in check, that's gonna kill us in the long term. But you don't frame it like that. And again, you just kind of manipulate the masses towards that, then that undoes it. Then your perfect system has been undone. And it's not like we've ever had a perfect system, but I don't know how you control against basically people who are trying to sabotage things that'll save us in very sophisticated ways. That's something you might be able to do with maybe eventually with technology, because like have requirements for positions of power. If we could get good enough at brain scans to determine, does this person have compassion? Okay, does this person understand like hard facts and evidence about her situation? And then they could check, okay, maybe you could do it that way, but then how do you prevent people from trying to get rid of the system? Because it's too invasive on the privacy of people who want to, have positions of power. So, this is discussed in science fiction. There's a Robert Heinlein book. It's called The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, where they're trying to have this revolt on the moon, on this lunar colony. And I think they kind of organize it so that, like, they're trying to organize it in cells so that if one element is ever compromised, they can't they can't undermine everybody else. So maybe something like that might work. Because the thing is, most people are on board for good things. And if you explain your arguments well in a reasonable way, like why this is good and this is bad, most people will be for that. So it's, okay, somebody's saying, oh no, okay, I thought they were talking to me. Yeah, I probably missed pages of chat. Uh, the what? So most people can be in favor of something good and want to do the right thing if they have access to good information. But it's, again, most people would rather just not worry about all this, and I don't blame them. So that leaves opening for people to sabotage it. I was thinking the other science fiction, which is more discouraging. I think in 1984 you had something like that where he thought he was working as like a revolutionary, and they were intentionally trying to like cut off communication from other cells because they didn't want themselves being compromised. Except, yeah, I'm spoiling 1984 a little bit. So that he finds out, oh, whoops, that's already been taken over by the oppressive regime. So that this whole thing was just a trap to try to prevent anybody who actually would influence change. So yeah, the bottom answer, yeah. So what it comes down to for any system, if you can figure out how to stop over time, like a long period of time, destructive, it's almost like we don't have an immune system to this sort of thing. Because, obvious threats we're great at. Humanity is awesome at real obvious threats. Like, there's barely any room for improvement there. But man, subtle ones that just kind of seep in over time. I think that's our biggest flaw. So if you figure out how to solve that scenario, you've solved humanity. So yeah, the analogy I was going to make in the video is it's sort of like in Team Fortress. It's like if you never did spy checks, never. But like so you just see all these people come in. All right, go in. That's what I'd say. It's like how does your team win if you never do spy checks? So I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. Although the closest answer I've seen, again, we're talking fantasy here now, to an extent. This is why I was impressed by sort of the lore of Warhammer 40K. In that system, you have this very dogmatic approach to principles that if you deviate from them, like humanity's screwed. In their case, it's demonic invasion. So, a little bit different structure. But if you had like a dogmatic regime that was stable and functional, that highly discouraged like any sort of like thought or deviation along these lines, like, so then maybe you could do something. But having that align with ecological sustainability, I mean, again, that's like something out of science fiction. So I don't know that's happened. So again, it's not what you mean by it's not this, again, blaming capitalism for everything isn't really the answer for it. But what you need, which could maybe in some weird sense, which I haven't even thought of, this could even work with capitalism. What you need is an economic system that gets the stamp of approval by ecologists. So people who really study like, the interaction of life and balance and, how much we can kind of tear things up and versus how much we have to preserve and everything. So if you come up with an economic system that like ecologists are just across the board, like, yeah, this works, like no problems with this, then yeah, that would work. So maybe capitalism could be modified to work in that sort of context, but you're getting into some heavy duty thinking as to how that would work. So, okay, field goal. I'm done with that question. So now we're back to bread and circuses here for the next ones, I hope. Let's see. Okay, there were a whole bunch of replies to that one, so I got to scroll down some more. Okay, how's the new place now that you've spent some time in there? Any major positives or negatives compared to the last place? Yeah, definitely. It's a big reshuffling. Well, I like my purge curtains there outside. It's just like, it just reminds me of the purge every time because it's like, the like security activated kind of thing. Another thing I like is I'm much closer to forest now. I can get there within like 15, 20 minutes. Before, in fact, that's a lot of what I was doing when like the place was overtaken by mold. I just wanted to breathe as little air here as possible. I probably have more hikes in the past 2 weeks than I have like all of last year from where I was at my old place. So that's something I've been wanting ever since I moved to Poland. I've been wanting to be closer to forest. So I would just go on like a long hike and bring like MP3 player, listen to like sometimes people have like discussions or speeches on YouTube, and I'll just convert them to MP3 and listen to them that way. Let's see. So I appreciate that, and just being. Plus, if you're gonna exercise, it's so much nicer being away from traffic. But you know, just cars everywhere all the time. Let's see, what's another one? The air quality, unfortunately, has taken a dive because we're like in this ring of neighbors where they're burning something that's just not good. It's probably trash. Sometimes, occasionally, you can see yellow smoke. I've heard you can report that to the Metro Police. I'm gonna try doing that. Or no, we did it for one person. Well, the question is, are they taking a report, just saying, okay, and just putting it in a folder and then doing nothing, in which case, can't really do anything. Or if they'll, because I think technically it's illegal to like burn trash or like toxic materials here, but it's the sort of thing that's not very enforced. So, well, hey, if they do actually go to their house and like hand them a fine, boy, I'll be fine being air cop. I do not. I take no shame in being an informant on that. So, let's see. I don't care if it does cause problems because it's. I mean, if I step outside and it's just terrible air, then like at least I can maybe just clean up the neighborhood a little bit. Let's see. What are some other things I like and don't like? It's a little bit farther to the grocery here, so. That can get a little old. Transportation is a lot better, much nearer to the train line. So, man, I think trains are great, really efficient, and just it's you know there's not a lot of places in USA where it's just like, oh yeah, trains. I can go lots of places with trains. You know, it's kind of rare, but it's I love having it here. Well, hey, yeah, you know what I do like, even though the mold returned, I was able to kill it, and there's not some deep structural flaw where like the wall or the ceiling's cracked that it's inside the walls. You know, so I like that. That hasn't happened. So the mold, it's probably just from the humidity. And so, you know what? I can use the dehumidifier. I will take an annoying solution over no solution every time to big problems. Let's see. There's some other things I like, dislike. Our grocery near us is having a crisis stocking things, and they might be getting bought out or going out of business, so that could be a problem, but I'll figure that out as it happens. I can't think of many other obvious. I like big things for me are forest and having man. It's I feel like I'm in heaven now that I have clean air again. And hey, I have my own room again, so that's nice. Actually, I feel bad. I checked with her like 10 times before we committed. My wife does not have her own room, so what we're doing is we're converting the living room to kind of her room. We're gonna get like these dividers and everything. She said she was okay with it. Like. You know, I just asked her a bunch of times. So eventually we'll have something that's, oh yeah, it's smaller. The whole place is smaller. So that's not quite as nice, but, okay, so I should move on to more questions. I burned a lot of time on the capitalism one. Okay. Do you think large power, yeah, see, these are the questions I'd rather be talking about. I'd rather save the capitalism questions to people who are smarter than me or more educated on the topics, you know. Do you think large powerhouse series that practically release yearly, like Assassin's Creed and Call of Duty, will stop being as successful in the next 10 years? or do you think it'll take much longer than that? I have no idea, man. I would have thought people have been tired of Assassin's Creed already, but Call of Duty I was never really a big player of. Although, you know what? Hey, I'm like going to be the black sheep of Call of Duty because I do plan. I haven't played. I played some of like the first one, like the World War II one, but I haven't played any of the others. However, I do plan to play like Advanced Warfare and Infinite, just because those have like a sci-fi theme. So I'm like, oh sure, I'll play just some random sci-fi game. However, I am completely understand how big fans of the franchise do not want that, and we're like, what the hell, for having this space shooter. I mean, I thought that was hilarious that they were, like I think for Infinite Warfare, they had like a trailer. They literally have like, in one shot, they have this woman in uniform, and she's running her hand along this kind of Vietnam memorial style wall, like names of the fallen. And then it immediately cuts to this sci-fi shot, which I'm pretty sure must have been Titan, Saturn's moons. It's like, should we really be taking this like so dramatically if we're having like colonies on Titan or whatever this is? So yeah, I mean, just so I will play it because I don't mind doing it. So it's like you shouldn't burn your franchise. You shouldn't burn your core franchise crowd to appease a new audience. Well, you should just do a new IP. So just because I'll play it, I would have gladly played some other generic space warfare game that takes, that's not Call of Duty. So yeah, it's just it's not a wise move, but let's see. Oh, somebody's saying Bruce Campbell's in Infinite Warfare. Sure. He probably does that zombie mode thing they always have. I don't know. So I'll probably play those eventually, but yeah, I would have thought people have been burned out by Assassin's Creed because I don't know, the gameplay seems kind of samey, but it depends. Like again, I would play more Castlevania games or Super Metroid type games where that formula is not going to get too old with me. And I imagine it's probably like that for some big franchises. But I'll tell you though, if they keep going with Assassin's Creed, I really hope they bring that. It's got to be relatively easy money if they just re-release Assassin's Creed, like some of their previous ones with that educational mode they added to Origins. Like I would love that for Assassin's Creed 3, Rogue, Unity. Like I'd love an excuse to explore all this stuff and then like learn more about the period, because that would take work, but you're really just gonna need voice actors and go in there and monkey with the assets a little bit in the past. For just selling it again at like say $30 or something, all your core assets have already been made. You really just need narrators and like some writers to add this stuff in there. Give it a second life, man. Because they've already covered so many time periods already. I mean, I guess it depends how well the discovery mode sold. So, okay, somebody's saying Video Game Donkey's video about Assassin's Creed is a must-watch. I'll have to check that out then. I've seen a few of his. They were hilarious. So. Somebody's saying I'm convinced Ross is from the future and this is a pre-recording from the past. I don't know why, but I sometimes find myself looking at a lot of things like that. In fact, another question somebody brought up was like, Ross, how do you stay positive in this? And one of my first thoughts was in 12 Monkeys, if you've seen that movie, where Bruce Willis has come back in time to the present, and the air is clean. He's riding in a car, listening to music. He's like, oh man, this is great, And so I'm kind of like that. It's kind of like, yeah, you can enjoy the present, man. Okay, a big part of your stop killing games argument is that if people buy a product, they should be able to use it no matter what the company thinks. Yeah. However, you might have answered this before, but what about free-to-play games like Fortnite or more recently Destiny 2's base game? Should a company be allowed to revoke all use of their product if the user never paid for it. Well, yes, if they never paid anything. Oh, you bought a weapon? Well, then you should be able to use your weapon in the game. So if you put money into the game, in my eyes, that's the same thing. Now, if it was completely free, like it was just a freeware thing, again, I'm not happy about it, but I don't feel like you should have like players like necessarily have the right to enforce any sort of penalty on the or enforcement on the creator keeping it going because it was free. But you know what? I mean, you put $5 into a skin or, you know, or $10 into a weapon or a map pack or something or some account feature. Well, that's money you put into the game to play it. So to me, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. So, you know, they're taking your money and you want to be able to use it. I mean, see, that was the distinction between it and something like, like with loot boxes, they were talking about between loot boxes and something like Magic the Gathering. Well, Magic the Gathering, you get to keep the cards and you can still play with them without the company existing, or you can, you know, have the artwork or trade them or something. So it's, you know, you're getting something from that. Whereas if you buy all these skins or buy all these features on your game account, well, if they shut the game down, you're left with nothing at all. So there you go. Let's see. In a couple of videos, you made references to Sierra games and the difficulty and fairness of their gameplay. Was it one specific game that griefed you the most, or was it a combination experience that drove you to madness? It was an industry standard, guys. Like, it wasn't just Sierra. It was like the two heavy hitters during that time were Sierra and LucasArts. They both did this. Sierra was, what distinguished Sierra was they could let you screw yourself. So, see, in LucasArts games, you just got stuck. But in Sierra, you could do something, you can make a mistake that you don't even realize is a mistake until hours later. So that stuff's just evil. But the thing is, okay, Sierra and LucasArts were, they were sort of the big names that, but there were a lot of other graphic adventure games, and a lot of them sort of imitated the Sierra or LucasArts style. So it's, you know, it was the game industry figuring out what they were doing, because I think what it was, it's the sort of thing, all this stuff was still kind of new. So people were seeing like, oh, all these good graphics. Oh, this is a cool story in these environments. I'm really interested in this. Oh, I don't really like the part where I'm never going to be able to figure this out. Oh, well, and then they sort of forget about the game. Whereas the diehards were going and calling the hint lines or buying one of those little hint books. And so that was like an extra revenue stream for like the companies making the game. So it was in their interest to keep it. And then eventually, I think people realized for the most part that like, hey, this isn't that fun. Most people like being able to beat the game if they work at it, you know, and some of the stuff you're never going to solve. So no, it in fact, yeah, I think I mentioned it in, what was it? Still Life, that for whatever reason, I somehow managed to get through all of Space Quest 1, the VGA remake version, with no hints. I managed to do it. That's like the only one, and Still Life. I think those are the only two I managed to do it on. So it's still possible. But you know, if a game you can get through like 90% of it without hints, I'll take the blame for most of that. So they still happen once you can eventually figure out. Okay, do you ever see yourself doing a game dungeon on a multiplayer game or free to play that either had an end of life plan or still with running servers? And he's mentioning Warframe, Path of Exile, Quake Champions. Well, these are kind of two different questions for me. For a multiplayer game, sure. In fact, one I may cover eventually, but it's like, it's one of the I know would be a lot of work just even thinking about it. So it's kind of like, maybe I'll put that off. I guess the other thing is for like these big games, like I still need to play Warframe Frame with all their expansions. I'm certain I'm at least gonna try out Warframe at some point because they seem to have all these great expansions they're releasing lately, or great from an aesthetic perspective. Like, cool, you're getting to go to other planets, see these weird aliens or robots. Yeah, I'm on board with that. Or yeah, I've played Path of Exile. I guess the thing is, for like the mega popular games, I have to think. My first thought foremost with Game Dungeon is I want to think of how can I make this like entertaining to watch, the best I can. So, and some games lend themselves to that more than others, like Requital. Yeah, I'm pronouncing it right, I think. Like that one practically wrote itself. Whereas others, I kind of have to think of like a hook that, like, or a certain perspective on this that makes this worth watching. So I'm not just repeating stuff you're going to hear from anybody else who might cover this game. So like these mega popular games, I'm not, I mean, I probably have a lot of the same thoughts as everybody else, and I'm not sure unless there's something in particular that just jumps out at me, I'm not sure there's much of a reason for me to cover it versus something else because oh man, somebody's writing requital in the chat. Like pronounce that way. You're gonna throw me off, man. That that I'm not sure me making the video would really add much to it. Whereas if I can make a video where either one, not that many people have seen the game or know about it, so it's kind of interesting for them to watch the video on it. Or two, I'm saying something they just haven't heard, like I don't think many people were talking about like the oil situation in the Human Revolution video, or I thought people hadn't really made some of the points that I made in the Deus Ex videos as much as I have, or like with the Invisible War, they probably weren't talking about how the solar flare. What was it? The Carrington event? I forgot the name of it. The one where like the EMP shockwave from the sun knocked it out. So if it's like a natural flow into the game for me to talk about this sort of thing, or if I just feel like, yeah, I'm going to talk about, I feel like talking about this stuff and it connects in my mind, then that I think does make for better videos. So it's not that I need the same hook every time, but I feel like I need something that makes the video kind of stand out a little bit. So, I mean, if I wanted to be cynical, maybe I could just cover all these games, give a few jokes, and then I still get as many views, but I don't know. That'd be a little more cynical for me since there's so many other games I could cover. Okay, how am I doing on time? Let's see. Okay, somebody's asking. Okay, so somebody's saying community answer this one. It can be ignored. So, all right. Let's see. Russ, what is your favorite image of yourself? Gee, I don't know. Well, I like that pirate one I did for episode 27 of Freeman's Mind. I put that up in the blog post. I had a bandana, and then I had like this sort of flintlock cat. It was really just a cat pistol, but I had a flintlock pistol. I got a souvenir from Williamsburg when I was a kid. That one looked pretty good. I don't have like tons of pictures of myself, but that one on it's ironic because it sort of fizzled out, but that Planet Side 2 one where I'm like doing sort of the Uncle Sam pose at the, we want you, that one kind of came out well. Half of the stuff on the YouTube videos, I was just being lazy and just picking what YouTube suggested. So like, yeah, sure, good enough. That's typically how it is for the video chats. So it's an AI picking out what I want to say vast majority of video chats, it's an AI picking out which picture to show, or it'll give me 3 choices and I'll just pick one out of the 3. There's one, my favorite is one I've never done actually. I think I sort of missed my window a little bit. In Clive Barker's Undying, I may cover that game eventually, but there's this portrait of like the family that's part of the plot. And when I was younger, if I was clean shaven, I looked exactly like I think it's Ambrose. Let's see, it's the character with long hair. And I regret not taking a picture like that because I mean I was never quite as thin as he was, but yeah, Ambrose, man. During that time, if I had that pose and just was clean shaven, I looked just like him. Like it was like wow. So I regret not doing that, and I'll probably repeat this in the video if I ever make one. Okay, there's a long question. Okay, Square Enix is saying Final Fantasy 15 director is leaving. DLC canceled. Oh yeah, the Diablo Immortal announcement as a mobile game. And then Fallout 76 hasn't been getting good reviews. They're saying, do you think the future has more going for it than against it? I think we should divorce this question from the previous one we had earlier. I think within the realm of gaming, yeah, let's keep it there. Or will the gaming industry slowly spiral down to a lazy money-making vortex that big companies will make no attempt to move away from? Well, again, I sort of think it's both because for like AAA franchises, there are many reasons to have skepticism about where it's going. I mean, because I mean, you could like compare like a major game from like 20 years ago, like just the business model. Like, okay, release major game. It probably has well thought out, lots of gameplay, lots to do in it, good aesthetics, and probably good enough story. And then now it's like you get the base game. Oh yeah, if the game was real popular, you would have gotten an expansion or a sequel or something. Meaty, something that doesn't feel like a bite-sized experience. Now it's like there's DLC already planned. There's probably stuff they're withholding from you if you just get the normal base game. Sometimes you have endings as DLC. Now they're trying to worm in microtransactions on everything that have cosmetic items. Loot boxes may or may not go away. We'll see. So it's like there's been a big shift as far as like what you're getting for the game and just how it feels, I mean, that's the part I care more about is like I like to get lost in the game worlds. So the more I see all this monetization stuff, it's like that reminds me I'm playing a game and I'm not like lost inside this world and making decisions like that. So again, I think it kind of cheapens the game. So, but I think the industry, they're still pretty hungry for that sort of thing in the AAA space. But the thing is, that creates an opening for fewer major companies to do this sort of thing. Like again, I'll go out on a limb. I think Cyberpunk, just from seeing the trailer and seeing somebody talk about it, I haven't even seen the gameplay. I have not at this point. I'm guessing it's going to be a pretty fun, solid game. So and I think a lot of people are saying that about Red Dead Redemption 2. No, I don't know. So I think there's still going to be some of those kinds of games being made that don't do that. So people kind of flock to them. And meanwhile, it's like a freaking ocean of hungry developers waiting to tear apart anyone in that space for indie games. Because man, it's like I mentioned a Death's Hangover. It's like, sure, that's not the greatest game ever, but it was a solid enough game that I bought on sale for 50 cents. It's like, good God. That spot is hyper competitive. And the thing is, it's likely to stay that way because the developers scraping to get by are competing against people doing this as a hobby who already are supporting themselves in other ways. So it's like, it's race to the bottom for them. But the thing is, the good games keep getting made. So, man, so even if the AAA space is going to hell, the indie game space, I think, is just, it seems like it should have imploded by now if it was going to. So, but again, you have that they're writing the long tail of things, and there's people who can just sort of do this as hobbyists. So that kind of just keeps that anchor down as far as like you don't have to have the game. I guess you don't have to rely on traditional market values in order for the game to get made, I guess is the thing, which means it can just kind of keep going and going. So I think there's a lot to look forward to, except the thing that just kills me is games getting shut down that you can never play again. So I'm nervous about that because there's still going to be some games that don't do that, of course, but it's even among indie games, there's plenty of that sort of thing. So it's, to me, that's like the one issue we gotta solve with gaming. So yeah, that's why I just keep kind of beating the drum on that sort of thing. But yeah, so I'm nervous on that, but as just far as gaming in general, I'd say even if you're sick of all the standard stuff, you just may have to look elsewhere, you know? Or okay, sorry to dwell on this, but another good analogy would be music. Like, you know, I think there's some, it's very subjective, but I think you can argue that like, you know, top 20 stuff just isn't as good now because it's all homogenous where like radio stations or whatever across the country, they're all owned by like the same few conglomerates. So you just have less variety and there'll be sponsorship of like what goes to the top rather than necessarily what people are listening to. However, you have access to more great music than you could ever want now. So I think it's going to be a similar thing in games. Like what's with mainstream may get kind of worse and worse, but you still have awesome stuff just overflowing. But you got to hunt more for it. Okay. How much of Dr. Freeman's personality is taken from your own? Is his taste in pop culture similar to yours? Well, yeah. I think the number I came up with was about 15%. I like some things from Freeman. I sort of bend a little bit more with Freeman and pop culture for things that you know a lot of people generally like. Like for instance, I'm not like #1 Rambo fan or anything, or what are some other things that he mentioned in that? So I sort of use things where I can do jokes when possible. I guess the things that are like my own personality are some of my thoughts about the situation that he's in mirror my own. Like when he's playing, it's just like, man, he just wants to get out of here. It's like, this isn't gonna work, like this plan to save the world. Or it's like, or I hated when you have to go back under the surface and like in Half-Life, when you finally get up at the surface, it's to bring underground, and then they start bombing down, you have to go back under. It's like, man, I want to get up on the surface and escape. So it was like that. Like a lot of his darker thoughts that I'm just kind of making that up for fun. Let's see. I mean that part's acting. It's what are some other things that relate to him on? I don't know. I guess a lot of the thoughts about the facility and the situation that he's escaping from. All right. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, Freeman is a creation to try to be as interesting as possible. I knew that from the beginning. So, as someone looking to create a machinima in the future, do you have any advice on how to promote the video I create? I've uploaded videos that took me a lot of effort to create in the past, but they don't seem to get a lot of attention. So I'm wondering if you had any ideas. And this is by Seal Cox with an X and with 2 A's in Seal. So like, yeah, well, yes and no, because no in the sense that I feel like a lot of my success has been luck and things have kind of changed now. Yes, in the sense that there's still some things I did initially that you can still do. This was the sort of thing I was hoping Gorilla Gong would kind of gain traction on, but it just it didn't hit the kind of critical mass we were hoping for, where the kind of community could sort of maintain it. And I just I didn't have time, and the other people maintaining it didn't have the time to really keep up with it individually. So it kind of petered out because of that. But okay, even without that, first thing, okay, if you're making a machinima, I guess the first thing you do is sort of know your audience. What I did, and this is back before YouTube had any real, it didn't have the same sort of exposure it had now. It's just like, oh, okay, you know, it's like what Vimeo might have been right now. What I did is I went to a bunch of Half-Life forums, or at the time machinima.com existed before it was completely different than what it is now. But one thing you do, go to any sort of forum that you think people might like your videos. So let's say you're doing source filmmaker, you know, go to like the Face Punch forums, go to any sort of Half-Life forums or Team Fortress ones, or anything Valve related at all, and try to put a post here like, hey guys, made a video, you know, you might enjoy it, trying to say you're looking for feedback, or, you know, try to approach it in a friendly way, not like shove it down people's throats kind of way. And then you can branch out to other games that are known to have some machinima, like let's say Halo. There's like a machinima section. Say like, well, hey, I know it's not Halo, but I'm trying to like, get a crowd to see if the people like it, that sort of thing. And you know, I think if you approach it in just sort of a, you know, like a friendly kind of polite way, you'll have generally pretty positive reception. I mean, assuming your video is good. Yeah, if your video is terrible, then they're probably going to tell you that. But as far as being open-minded towards watching your video. So in a sense, you kind of have to like make your own campaign, like you're running for office or something like that. Because that's what I did for the first civil protection. I just would post it at a lot of different places I thought people might appreciate it. And unfortunately, I don't have as much experience on this, but maybe some of you do. Try to reach out to other YouTubers that you know, especially if you're just starting out, especially smaller ones, you know, that they're, you know, they might have time to, you know, do like a cross promotional thing or something like that. So you're gonna have to kind of grab people like, you know, tens at a time, that sort of thing, and just try to have your own campaign, reach out as many ways as you can. Now, of course, with social media, I'm kind of a dinosaur on that. So, you know, with Twitter and Facebook, I'm sure you can do more of the same, but I'm less certain of the approach on that. But yeah, just networking in general and just try to do media stuff is how I would try to handle it if I was like making it now today and starting from zero. And well, I guess the other thing is, if you're trying to create your machinima, if you're really trying to get the publicity on it, you might want to put a little more effort into like the quality of it, especially with writing. Writing and acting, I'd say, are the two most important parts for getting an audience. Because if you have shoddy production value, but it's hilarious or just real intriguing or something, I think people are much more likely to overlook it. So, yeah, that's my general advice. It's just forums, contacting other smaller machinima people or people who run the game that, you know, maybe there's like a Half-Life news thing or like smaller Half-Life news feed. Yeah, so start small and just branch out as much as you can. Okay. Ross, as a PC gamer, how do you feel about consoles? It's always like and he's asking, am I avoiding consoles on Game Dungeon? It's the first question. It's always a mixed feeling because there's lots of fantastic games on consoles. But I guess what I don't like about them, it's like they're finding reasons. Like I'm totally for the console as a form factor. It's just, you know, have a system, put the game, well, yeah, it's not even putting the game in now, but just have a system, select the game, start, play. Absolutely. Like there should be that. that level of simplicity needs to exist for gaming. You shouldn't have to do the crap I'm doing for some of the Game Dungeon episodes. Because, however, what I don't like is it's like they're going all the like the Xbox and the PlayStation are both using x86 hardware, like AMD graphics. I think Nintendo's using ARM or something. It's like they're trying to find reasons to be incompatible. Like in the old days, no, they were totally doing different things. Again, Sega was prioritizing CPU speed, like the Super Nintendo was, and the Sega Genesis, I mean, the Super Nintendo was prioritizing like the sound chip and the color depth, that sort of thing. And yeah, totally different. And then even if they had similar capabilities, the workflow would be completely different. Like the PlayStation 3, I think, was the last one to do something like that. Its architecture was radically different than like the Xbox 360. But now it's like all kind of the same thing, and it's artificial, locking people off from one or the other. So I'm not against consoles so much as I'm against like exclusives that they're like paying the developers to keep them off other platforms. I mean, if they don't want to develop them on other platforms, that's fine. But, and again, it reminds me so much of the film in the old days where, you know, only Warner, I'm sure I've repeated this like 10 times on the chat, you know, only Warner Brothers would, the local Warner Brothers theater would only show Warner Brothers films. The Universal would only show Universal films. I think Warner Brothers is around then. So until they eventually, except now, you just go to the theater and companies put their movies in the theater. And it's like, God, I wish we could get to that. So, and then like the games could be released like, let's say, you know, gamepad recommended or console optimized for some games for like a platformer or something. And then if it's like a real-time strategy, they might say like, you know, PC optimized, but you can still play it on the console or something. But that's probably utopian thinking on my part. And as for Game Dungeon, it's not that the games don't interest me, but it's a similar problem that I mentioned before in that, like, I'm not as much of an expert on console. Well, I wouldn't say I'm an expert on much of anything, but it would be real weird stuff I am. But the console games in particular, I'm not as familiar with all these different ones, like the more obscure ones. So, and that's much more heavily treaded space. So not only do I know kind of more about PC games, but I've covered, I'd say more than a couple games nobody's covered on YouTube at all. So it seems like there's a better operating space. Not only is that more natural for me, but that's a better operating space for me to kind of give you a video that, you know, has something you might not have seen before, that you might find more entertaining. Then again, like let's say I was going to cover like Super Metroid. I'm sure I could come up with a couple of jokes, but I don't know if I'm going to say much that like a million other people haven't said already. So, and that probably they've covered 3 times as many things that I know about. So it's I don't know. I'm just sort of going blind on intuition with a lot of these games, that what it covers on the Game Dungeon. So I was gonna say, actually, I've actually had some people like thank me that like I am covering these ones that like nobody else has covered, because it's, you know, me making like another Super Metroid video. Yeah, I'm sure some people would like it, but you know, then you wouldn't have stuff like Mabus or Mabus. I don't remember how to pronounce it. So yeah, it would come at the expense of something like that. How would you feel about going on the official podcast? It's from somewhat popular YouTuber, Critical. Yeah, I've heard that name, Critical, spelled like that. I think I don't know much about anything about it at all. Maybe in the chat somebody could let me know what's a good episode to listen to get a sample of it. Like I always like to hear like some of like what the best ones are to get an idea of what a series or something is capable of. But in general, I'm fine going on with podcasts or interviews as long as I have time. It doesn't even have to be like a major one. I usually my policy is I like to not, if it's like an interview or a YouTuber guest thing, I like to have uh, me not be the first person, just so I can have an idea of what their podcast or whatever is like, so I know what I'm getting myself into. Because I mean, it's possible it could be one that totally I'm thinking, oh, maybe I better avoid this one, but it's not really about number of views or anything like that for me. It's just like, do these sound like people I get along with or could have a good conversation with, or are they immediately going to take this to, or am I going to be like a fish out of water, not being able to offer much of the conversation? So, yeah, but yeah, in general, I'm open to the idea. Okay, now let's see what the chat says for which official podcast I should listen to if I'm going to pick one. Let's see. Or which episode, I mean. Are there any machinima series that had a special place in your heart or you think ended too early? For me, it'd be Shelf Life by Pixel Eye Productions. Yeah, definitely. Shelf Life's fantastic. That might be my favorite non-comedy Half-Life machinima, I think. Geez, now I know. Well, see, this was the point of like having the featured list on Gorilla Gone. Geez, I forgot his name. I want to say it was like Mark Maham. He had this. I gotta get on somebody who has maintained that. Even though Gorilla Gong's sort of going down, we're still gonna get something up. So at least an index of everything that got put up there. But the promotional video I did for Gorilla Gong, I used this stuff. I think one of them was called Spider Friend. Another one was Grandma is Coming. Those are hilarious. And he had another one in Halo that I thought was hilarious. I thought it was great. What are some other ones? Jeez. I'm running dry on the names. It seems like I've been missing quite a bit from the chat. Somebody's saying Ross in The Road, and that's like a dark post-apocalyptic book. So I'm wondering how it got there. Let's see. I'm okay. What are some other good machinimas? I gotta think of some. Okay, there was a. Geez, see that's the problem. I'm remembering a lot of these, but I don't remember names of anything. Because there was a Halo one that was great. Where this guy, Bad Soda, that was the name of it, Bad Soda. That's a great one. Let's see. Snacky's Journal, although the production quality, there's a World of Warcraft one. The production quality is always great. The writing is better at some than others. Snacky's Journal, the one where he goes to a gym, it's like working out or fitness. It's like episode 4 or something like that. That one was great. I just the bottom line is we got to get that Gorilla Gone index set up because that has a lot of great stuff on it. Detective Nigbone. That one's not for everybody. That one's, if you're easily offended, do not watch that. So, I tend to be relatively. I tend to have pretty thick skin with comedy, so I'll watch a lot of different comedy stuff. Let's see. I feel like there's like 5 more just sort of. Okay, somebody's saying the Oblivious Films Halloween special was great. I don't think I saw that one. And no, it's not Bat Soda, it's Bad Soda. Somebody mentioning in the chat. Okay, let's see. Yeah, sorry. I was see that one question just took up so much time, but I figured I had to get full explanation on that one. Okay. There's been a bunch of photos of Polish nationalist marches that are going on. Has any of this stuff been going on near you? What are your thoughts on them? It hasn't been going on near me. I haven't really followed it. I'll just say that the more strained a society gets, or the more like a political system feels like it doesn't represent a large number of people, you're going to see stuff like this in all kinds of different directions. So not knowing much at all about the specifics, I can say that's probably a symptom of like increasing instability of a system going on. So let's see. Do you prefer games that move the story along with in-game conversations from characters, or games that use a liberal amount of cutscenes? For example, two of my favorite games, the Half-Life series versus The Last of Us. Okay, my first reaction is to say cutscenes, but let's check the chat. Who does like the best like in-game ones? Because I feel like Half-Life's story is sort of barren. I mean, Fear did it, but I'd say the story wasn't really Fear's strength. It was sort of like the gameplay and how visceral everything felt. So I don't know. It's like yeah. So I'm checking the chat. Who does like in perspective? Like you're the character the best. Okay, you know the what? The what? Jeez. The story wasn't that great overall. However, I'd say okay, see, somebody's mentioned a bunch of games I haven't played yet. I still need to play Amnesia, still need to play the new Doom, and I still need to play the new Prey. I played the old Doom, I played okay, somebody's played Penumbra. Yeah, I've played Penumbra, I've played old Doom, and I've played old Prey. So, I gotta just gradually get up there. There's a lot. Somebody's saying System Shock 2. System Shock 2 had a cutscene, but you're right. Most of it, vast majority, was first person. Okay, yeah. Silent Hill, no, you have cutscenes all the time in Silent Hill. So yeah, that was System Shock 2. I liked a lot. Although, yeah, System Shock 2, you're sort of getting it through the logs, I guess more. That's where you're getting most of your stories. So I don't know. It's like I think System Shock 2 is a wonderful game, but I think it worked. I don't think they should have done that differently. But overall, I think I prefer cutscenes because even the log system, it felt kind of like you're alone. And the thing is, when you're speaking right to the camera, like when they're speaking right at you, like you're the person, for some reason that creates a greater level of disconnect for me because it's like, okay, I'm inhabiting this person, which is kind of weird, or else I'm the silent protagonist, which has its own limitations. However, I'll say one of my favorite moments as from the first person perspective, even though the overall story, there wasn't much to it, is in Quake 4. Apparently that was something they spoiled all across everybody, but I never saw that spoiler because I try to avoid stuff like that. Where, I guess I'll spoil it now, where you you start getting converted as one of the Strogg, and it's going into like an assembly line. Oh man, I was thinking like that. I didn't know that was gonna happen, and I was like, whoa, that one felt intense, and that one really worked. So I guess and again, I like System Shock because it was supposed to be more desolate. Somebody's mentioning, okay, somebody's saying Outlast, but then somebody's saying that had cutscenes, which I'm kind of behind on horror games. So I'd say if you're going real intense with what you're doing, maybe in view works better. But in general, I kind of prefer cutscenes. So that'd be the third person seeing the character, that sort of thing. Okay. Let's see. Theoretically, do you think you could keep doing game dungeons for the rest of your life? Yeah, theoretically, sure. I mean, it's not like I'm going to run out of games. I'd say the biggest thing is maybe if I get old enough, my voice might be sounding more brittle. So yeah, okay, here's this game. So, you know, maybe at some point, like biology is going to work against me for keeping it going. But by then, I'd hope to be able to just sort of direct stuff. So it doesn't matter if I'm, you know, talking like, if I'm, you know, talking like the Crypt Keeper or something. So, let's see. But yeah, there's no real limitation on that. Whereas, sorry to say, eventually Freeman's mind is going to end, you know, once I get to the end of the game. Whereas Game Dungeon doesn't have that sort of limitation. If you were given a chance to visit any place in time and history, with guarantee you would not be harmed or change the course of history, what places would you love to visit, or what events would you love to experience? Man, okay, again, just going with my first reaction, though there's probably better answers. I wouldn't mind seeing, well, again, because I grew up in that part of the world. I don't know, just something about the atmosphere and aesthetics of that time period and that setting I like. Just sort of colonial America, or, you know, revolutionary or post-revolutionary America. I like that. Let's see. So, you know, being able to be in some place like Boston in the early settlement times, or, you know, or just, well, that was in Roanoke, but, or Pittsburgh, that'd be another one. Or not Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. So seeing it during that time. As for events, you know, I was thinking about some of the most impressive events in history. A whole bunch of people still die. It's just that looking back on it historically, you have that kind of detachment from it. But if you're actually seeing the people die and making the connection, then you might not be able to look at it the same way anymore, because it's much more real for you then. So I probably wouldn't want to actually witness a lot of the most amazing battles or something like that, because there's a world of difference for me between like fiction and, you know, reality. And, you know, while I can look at history in a much more kind of casual way, if I'm actually experiencing it, it might be different. So as for events, you know, I was thinking they don't get covered that much, but, you know, watching the celebrations of a war ending might be pretty awesome. Like, again, Revolutionary War, that might, you know, watching the ending of it, like the celebration of it, could be pretty great in like a major city. I mean, because that's historical for World War II. You know what or the end of the war in Europe, and so yeah, because that would just be like constant party, like all the time. Everybody's in wonderful spirits. I don't know. I'm not sure there's much better answers. I guess the other thing would be maybe events that just historians have no idea what happened. But okay, 20th anniversary of Half-Life is coming up tomorrow by this chat time. Maybe I'll have the video out by then on YouTube. Yeah, maybe I should release it tomorrow then. So yeah, today if you're watching this on YouTube. I'd like to know how you first learned about the Half-Life franchise, when you first played it, and how it affected your outlook on other games in terms of narratives, characters, and gameplay. I'd say it didn't affect my outlook much on characters, or at least because they just felt like the original Half-Life felt like NPCs kind of to me, that talking NPCs, you know. I first learned about it. I actually don't remember. However, I think I saw some video online, but definitely maybe like the second place I learned of it was there was a promotional video on the expansion to Diablo, Hellfire, that they talked about Half-Life, and you got an early look of it. And I think my first reaction actually was that, oh, geez, I don't know if I want to play this because it just seemed like too big. It was like, oops, there was too much. It's it seems kind of silly now, but it's like, oh, it seemed like overwhelming to me because I was getting a sense of how gigantic the Black Mesa facility was just from the trailers. It's like, oh man, I don't know if I don't know if I could have time for this or could handle it or something like that. That was my reaction. Obviously, I decided I could. I played it kind of early on because I borrowed it from a friend. That's how, man. That's how I played vast majority of like these mainstream popular games like them. I just borrow it from a friend. Uh, let's see. I mean, even now to some extent with like Steam sharing and stuff, but the what? Yeah, I mean, yeah, I thought it was pretty great. I mean, with the gameplay and everything, it just kind of made me want to keep playing it. Although, again, my main motivation was, yeah, try to escape the facility, try to escape. Yeah, I think it never really. I mean, of course, I liked how it started off with a slow introduction, which is not common in first-person shooters at the time. I mean, now a lot of games do that, but and I liked ease. See, I love things that, like with movies also, that they start off kind of easy and just sort of get up, ramp up, and then you get to insanity. So, yeah, okay. I'll bit of a spoiler. The movie, it's going to be a little bit like that. It's not going to start off with just like explosions and just giant battles or anything like that. So I love build up with stuff and movies and games and that sort of thing. They just sort of keep getting better and better and more interesting. So I appreciate that. Somebody's saying I did Impulse 101. No, well, yeah, I do it for making Freeman's mind. I mean, I do cheats but no, I didn't cheat in the original one. Half-Life is actually the game that got me to do I think I mentioned that last time, to do the duck jump. Okay, I should skip that because I think I might have mentioned it already. So, yeah, I don't remember it having like a huge impact on how I looked at other games because, well, no, I'm getting the stuff I might mention later in a video, so. Have you heard of Paradox Interactive? If yes, what is your opinion on them? My impression, I've definitely heard of them, and my impression of Paradox Interactive was that they always made strategy games that sounded like they were a little too hardcore for me as far as like learning all the mechanics and like just what you need to know to play the game. However, I think more recently they've released some stuff that I think for sure I'd want to at least give an honest effort to try out, like is it Stellaris and let's see, what have they done? Paradox Interactive. You know what? I'm actually using a different keyboard right now because to give you an idea just how crazy I went with cleaning things once I smelled the mold again, I disassembled my entire computer. Not just dusted it out, not only dusted it out, but wiped everything down with alcohol, like isopropyl alcohol. And my keyboard, yeah, it's actually right here. You can still, I'm putting it back together because I took out every key and just wiped things down with alcohol, vacuumed it, just so it's still getting put back together. Just because I just wanted to eliminate any possibility that it was like coming from the computer, the parts, or anything. So let's see. Yeah, and yes, I've won. Somebody's asking if I've won the war on mold yet. I've won the battle, and I can keep winning the battle. I'm not sure this war is going to end at this point. But the dehumidifier, I've just been running it just like my life depends on it. So it's like every day I'm running it in here until like the humidity drops to like within non-mold levels. And and yeah, I know I'm getting sidetracked in the question. Let's see. Okay, list of Paradox games. Okay, do it by year, guys. Let's see. What else have they done? Yeah, see, a lot of these are either like turn-based combat, which I'm not into, or just really hardcore strategy games. Oh, they did Magica? Huh. There was another one I think they did that was interesting. Yeah, see, Pillars of Eternity, that's like another one. It's like, well, maybe. I think that one might be turn-based combat. I'm not sure which. Surviving Mars, that's one I wanted to play. And see, that's one, and here's another one I'm so torn on, like, because I think BattleTech is a game I'd like everything about except turn-based combat. So it's like, man, maybe I'll just bite the bullet and try it out anyway eventually, or I don't know. See, that's an example of a game I want to like, but I may not. So, and it's probably a fine game. But yeah, I'm making sure like sunlight gets in here every day, but that wasn't enough, especially with shorter days in Poland right now. But yeah, I'm running it in here probably multiple times a day, like at least twice. I'd say in my room, and then I'm running it in the bedroom once every day also. BattleTech is not turn-based? Somebody saying that? I thought... Yeah, the thing is, it's not that turn-based means it's a bad game. It means that for me, it's just not what I enjoy typically. Let's see. Paradox games are not turn-based. None of them. Well, awesome. I thought BattleTech was turn-based. Okay. Cool. I must be mixing things up then. Am I thinking of a different game? I mean, BattleTech's that like that mech one with like sort of dynasties type stuff. Okay, yeah, somebody's saying, wait, sorry, BattleTech is turn-based. Okay, so wisdom of the internet here. So yeah, I'm sure I'll try out some of them eventually, but it's like the more of a learning curve there is to the game, the more that sort of shoves it down on the to play list for me. So, all right, let's see. Yeah, what else talking about? All right, so okay, somebody's asking a question about how Freeman will react to something. I've decided to just stop doing those because you'll find out, you know. Russ, in the crew episode, you stated that your climate preferences are shaped by where you grew up. How would you feel about a climate like Ecuador's, where the temperature is the same year-round, but varies with altitude? Is it a big deal for you if it doesn't snow in winter? Well, it's like there's things I care about more than others. I mean, probably my ideal would be just sort of forested mountains with a colder climate. That would be my ideal. Ecuador certainly has vegetation, so I appreciate that. That's probably like number one thing I like having. I don't know, just something works on me if it's just sort of all urban or all sort of desert or really arid or dry. I don't know, I just tend to not like that. Then I guess, I don't know, I do like having winter, so I'm sure I could adapt. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I lived in Louisiana, so that did have winter, but it wasn't, I mean, there certainly wasn't snow. I mean, I definitely like snow, but geez, it's getting warmer and warmer here, so I don't know. I could certainly adapt to Ecuador, I think. The heat would be brutal, though. I'm not good with, yeah, I don't think he was talking about Ecuador, but my uncle visited, it was someplace either in Central or South America, and he was saying, well, it's not so, yeah, it might have been Bolivia, or he was saying, well, it's not so bad, it's just that you have to realize it's 100 degrees and 100% humidity all the time. So, yeah, you know, when I was in Louisiana, like during the summer, especially, like if I wanted to go run, I had to do it at night because it was too hot for me. And even then, it was still too hot. Like middle of the night, I would just take water and just dump it over my head. And that's the only way I could stay cool long enough to do a run. You know what I kept thinking of is like Norfair in Super Metroid when you're going there without a suit. Because, you know, you're just doing that like that kind of hell run with the lava and your health is just ticking down immediately. That's how like extreme heat feels for me. So I don't have the best genes for good heat. Whereas with cold climate, you know, I can take a lot of it. So as long as I can keep my extremity, like ears, fingers, and toes, if I can keep those cold, man, I can handle lots of cold weather. So I mean, pretty intense stuff. So if I can keep those warm, then you know I can handle almost anything for cold. What is your absolute favorite puzzle and/or real-time strategy game? Well, I mean, overall, he's saying for games that test your mental capacity. Well, I mean, for overall, like I love Puzzle Agent, but I'm trying to. You know, there's a lot of good. You know, I really like the and Still Life. I really like that that cooking the cookie logic puzzle. That was like one of the best puzzles I've seen. It's like it was. I like ones that are sort of like this gigantic sort of logical knot you have to like deduce. But yeah, for puzzle games, I mean, I've played stuff like, you know, old ones like Island of Dr. Brain, Castle of Dr. Brain. What are some other good ones that can... Oh, somebody's saying Puzzle Agent 1 and 2 will be getting removed from Steam. Oh, due to the Telltale shutdown, yeah. Well, you know what? Okay, here's my advice. Once it goes down, pirate the sucker and then send Graham Annabelle like a buck or two. I think he has a Patreon or something like that. I feel like that I mean, there's still people who worked on the game, but they more likely had a better compensation. So yeah, that would be my advice. Just go pirate it and send him a buck or two. You know, or because it honestly would go on sale for like $1 frequently. So I'm sure he gets more of a cut of it than what he did. Or yeah, okay. So for a real-time strategy game, I guess okay, but he was for ones that test your mental capacity. I don't know if I have an absolute favorite for real-time strategy, but for ones that test your mental capacity, boy, Baldi's, that's not my favorite, but man, that one level, it's like, geez, I had to figure it out. Some of them, I don't, I'm trying to remember as many like failed attempts because my strategy wasn't good enough as in other games. I mean, but that's definitely not my favorite. I mean, my favorite, if I had, I guess if I had to pick one or two, I mean, I really like Supreme Commander, but I feel it's like I feel like Supreme Commander did everything well, and then nothing so good. It's just, I mean, except the scale it sure did, but it's so good that it's just like burned in my memory how memorable it was. That I don't know. Supreme Commander is like a perfect example of a game. You ever have games where you really like this game, but is it your all-time favorite? It's like, I don't know. You know, that's how Supreme Commander is for me. Somebody's saying it's too stressing. Well, that actually gets to another one. And this is probably a controversial answer for some people, but this is the last game they made that like I really enjoyed it. Like really enjoyed it. Even though I felt like I had some problems, and it's free now. You can play it for free. StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty. I thought like the part, if they had just tightened up the writing a little bit, like, and just gotten rid of the stupid Kerrigan romance subplot, I'd say they just nailed it. Because I feel like that one doesn't have the best gameplay for my taste, but the presentation is fantastic. I mean, I love the idea of just you're having this, you know, gang of roughnecks just going through space, saving the universe. It's like, all right, well, let's go do it. I just love that concept. It was fun. And then like, I feel like the story just got stupid after that. Like it was like at the edge of a cliff as far as like, okay, now keep in mind, I haven't really kept on World of Warcraft, so maybe their writing has gotten better or is great or something. But for my taste, I feel like that was like the last game they made where like, yeah, I think that the writing was, I loved it except for the stupid Kerrigan subplot. And it was like at the cliff. It's like the edge of a cliff. And then after that, the games just go over a cliff and it just gets stupid with the writing. The gameplay is still fun in the other ones and the atmosphere is good, but yeah, in fact, I would recommend StarCraft 2 as like Wings of Liberty. Like if you want to get into real-time strategy games, you've never played them, which one should I start with? Man, if you want to, it holds your hand. Like, but I mean, it can be pretty tough too, and it shows like all these different things, and then you can, I'd say part of the gameplay is still like a little bit in the past, but because you know but it's just a very solid game, and that one might get a game dungeon because I think there's some things I can say that haven't been expressed to my to my satisfaction in other videos. But yeah, okay, I should move faster. Over 2 hours. Let's see. Oh, am I going to do more sort of clustered smaller game dungeons like I did in the Halloween sampler? I don't know. I don't have it planned. I feel like the presentations, it's a little more satisfying to watch like a full episode. And if anything, I almost feel like Paul Sr. and the Phantom saved the Halloween sampler one, the sampler 2. So I don't know. It could happen. That's basically what the follow-up episodes are anyway. So yeah, somebody's saying they like the larger videos. It feels like a little more complete experience, which like, you know what my goal is for the videos and what I like to see in other videos is you walk away feeling like kind of satisfied, like, yeah, you got an experience out of it. And I feel like the tiny ones, you don't get that quite as much. But I actually, okay, no, I do have something planned that's not exactly what you're talking about, but there's something that's going to come that's a little bit like that. So I don't want to give any more hints because I like having surprises for people. What phone do you use? I don't even know. It's something I bought for like $10 when I came here. It has an LED display, or LCD display. It's not a smartphone. It's just, I don't know. You know, it's weird. As much as I interested in like technology, what you can do with it, phones have just never had much of an interest for me. I think it depends on like sort of your lifestyle and what you do. Because like if you're someone who's just like, if you're practically like a nomad, I can see where like a phone would have a lot more value. But it's like, except for the mobile aspect, phones don't do a whole lot. Computers can't. So yeah, they just, I don't know. It's just, they never interested me that much. Meanwhile, I'm just like hungry for like the next VR to come along that's going to be just right. And then I'm going to be trying to extract game worlds into that to experience it. So it's just mobile messaging stuff doesn't get me as excited. You know what, part of the other thing is around the times phones started getting more prolific, then like my local friends just started spreading to like the 4 corners of the earth. So that's what's happening sometimes. It's like sometimes my friends will be around and then they just go and move somewhere else. And then like I don't know anybody locally. So it's just like, well, nobody's calling me. So it kind of reduced my need for needing like text messaging or anything like that. So yeah, I mean that's that's why I didn't have much holding me back when I moved to Poland. It's like all my friends left before me anyway. I mean, they didn't go to Poland, but they, somebody went out west, another person went north, somebody went to another country. So yeah, and hey, I don't remember the model of my phone, but you will be seeing it in a future video. I have sort of a, it's gonna get a cameo for that. Do you plan on watching Overlord the movie? It premieres this month. I hadn't even heard of it actually. And somebody below it says it's the most serious Nazi zombie movie to have come out yet, so that might do some good. That sounds like something I'll watch then. I don't think I'll watch it in the theater though. I tend to be cheap and watch them on video later. Yeah. So what's in the running for the most serious zombie Nazi movie? Yeah, I mean, because Dead Snow isn't that serious, or it kind of becomes less. The irony is, I think I actually have a candidate for it. What was the name of it? Because there was one that I thought was okay, and then I liked the sequel better. I felt like the sequel was a little bit better. Is it The Bunker? Let me check something. It might have been The Bunker, but I think there was some other. See, I'm getting my Nazi zombie movies mixed up. Sorry, guys. This happens, This happens in my world. Okay, oh wow, I got 2 sequels. Okay, I might be thinking of Outpost 2. No, I think that one's it. Outpost Black Sun. It's not a great movie, but again, it has that kind of build-up that I liked. And then I think I haven't seen Outpost 3. Or maybe I did and that one wasn't as good. Yeah, these are not great movies. But, if you're a fan of that much more specific subgenre, then, yeah, you might like that. Then that might be one to top then. So I haven't even heard of Overlord, actually. So, yeah, I'll have to check it out. But, yeah, I think The Bunker is one. And Outpost, I remember being all right. And I think I liked Outpost 2 better. So, which is surprising. Usually the sequel is, but I could be the minority of the minority in this case. So, would you ever consider eventually making channel-related merchandise? And he's saying you'd like a shirt with Freeman's mind. It's not one of those things where it's like, it's just a lower priority for me. I hate to say it, than the videos and the chats and everything. As long as I'm staying afloat. I mean, I attempted it in the past and a lot of things went wrong. And I think I could probably do it again, but it's like, if I set that up, again, I want to just have an option where people can just get the shirt as cheap as they can and nobody's profiting off of it except the shirt printing company. So maybe I'll release some designs or something, because it's like otherwise it's like people buy a $20 shirt and then I get $1 out of that, and it's like they spent $20 like, oh, they're supporting the show, and it's like, well, kind of, it's I don't know. It gives me a lot of mixed feelings. You absolutely have my blessing. Maybe I'll release some images to print your own shirts for nonprofit. So, if you're selling them and just keeping all the money, yeah, that's not very cool. But yeah, you absolutely have my blessing to do that sort of thing. And tell you what, maybe that's what I'll do in the future is set something like the shirt designs that you can download and use them or something like that. I don't know. I feel like it sounds crazy, but I feel like it might work against me as far as like time and the ratio that I get back on it. So, Yeah, I mean, I keep thinking this sort of goes back to the capitalism question again, because, you know, at a huge level, absolutely, keep me afloat. But if it's like my fan base is only so large of people that would buy a shirt, it would probably be like a spike where it's like it supports me for like a month and then it doesn't at all because I'm not big enough. So it's like the scale matters. So. Okay, okay, we're getting down to sillier questions. So I might skip some for time. He's asking about mold war. Or Ross, do you socialize with locals in Poland? I have sometimes. It's like I need to find more events that like speak English and have free time. It's like it's like my free time just I don't know. I don't know what happened, guys. I don't know what happened. Um, well, I guess moving certainly influenced it, but I mean, I would like to do some more stuff, but of course, it have to be more of an English speaking thing. It's the sort of thing I sought out more initially, and then people would just sort of come and go. Have you seen Being John Malkovich? Yes, I have. I thought that was pretty entertaining. And generally, I like surreal comedies. So, do people in Poland know English? Some. Do you know Polish? A little bit bare bones level. How do you generally communicate with everyone there? Nouns and verbs tends to be the best attempt. Let's see. Okay, somebody's asking about a game I'm not familiar with, Return of the Obra Dinn. So I'm not. And somebody's mentioning World Beyond's Mind Shell. Apparently, it's a custom soundtrack for one of the Command and Conquer games, I guess. I wasn't familiar with that. I can check it out. If you can make any fictional character real, who would you pick? Ooh. We need somebody who's going to solve all our problems then. Oh. Doctor Who might not be a bad place to start. But let's see. Does he solve enough problems? So he has to be a little more lower level. Or get the, who is it? Asmodeus from Watchmen or something? Who else could solve a lot of problems for us? Somebody's saying the genie, I guess from Arabian Nights. Yeah, I mean, if I'm calling somebody into existence, I want somebody who's gonna like leave a mark, you know. Let's see. Who else is like good at leave a mark in a good way, I guess. And I don't know this reference. Einar Salks, which I'm probably mispronouncing. Oh, somebody's saying Tony Stark. Maybe. Yeah, like he would actually take long-term problems seriously. Yeah, Tony Stark's not a bad answer. But again, though, is Tony Stark thinking quite big picture enough? Because, listen, Tony Stark could usher in prosperity, but then once he's gone, you're going to have, what was it? Obadiah? What was the villain in the first one? Then he's going to move in and take over Stark Industries or something. Or if Tony prevents that, then you're just going to have like a charity left of like nice people running it, and then it's going to resurface like the old guards. So Obadiah, that's it. Obadiah. So yeah, Tony Stark might not be best in the longest, but yeah, he would do a lot. He would do a lot. That's for sure. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think I might go back with. I literally can't even. Okay, you can tell my blood sugar's dropping. My I literally don't even remember the first answer, but the smartest man in the world from Watchmen probably would he would give us some big picture attempts, so that'd be good. All right, let's see. How much American Chopper have you watched and why? The amount of extremely specific, appropriate clips you have is almost frightening. Some of that was a coincidence. I actually was looking for clips of them arguing, and then I saw the tank footage. I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta throw this in. That wasn't planned. The part with the tank, that just happened in editing. I was just like, oh wow, it's too perfect, you know. Uh, I've seen the first few ones up to. I was watching them back when I had Netflix back on DVD. That's like the only reality television I think I've watched. It the reason I like it is I'm not even that interested in like choppers or motorcycles, but the thing is like every episode they're dealing with a highly technical project, like things screw up and then they just start yelling at me, and like emotionally it's so similar to making the videos, especially like for the older ones with civil protection, because there were so many components to getting civil protection working properly, then things go wrong. It's like I could relate to that just almost exactly. So it was it was just and then just seeing them just be having the layer of dysfunction on top of that, and just seeing them yell at each other, it was just like, oh man, this is perfect. Like I found it supremely entertaining. That's what, and it's just it's a well produced show. So that was the draw of it. I actually wish I could get the soundtrack to the other one. I think I'm up to season 3 or something. I'm like a decade behind on the show, but I'm gonna keep watching them. So yeah, I'm slowly going through them, and I guess what I like is a lot about the drama they presented in just a really kind of almost dysfunctional and comic way. So I guess it comes at their expense, but I think they're probably doing all right. Well, I heard Paul Senior read where the Paul Senior went bankrupt, and that's kind of on him though. I mean, geez, those guys have like national recognition, so. Yeah, I do enjoy that show. It's normally I don't really care for reality television at all, but that one, I could really, I really connect emotionally on the building process. It's a lot like that. It's a lot like that show. So, uh, yeah, because there was one episode where they're like supposed to show it, like the bike's still not working, like, and it's like an hour before this national show and everything, and everybody's getting down there. They had to like convert a hotel. I think like the Comanche bike was. You could see how stressed they are about it. It's, oh man, I can relate entirely, even though it's completely different field. So, okay. Okay, somebody's saying considering how much crap's going into modern gaming, where do I think it's? Excuse me. Where do I think it's going next? Will older games be cut away while implementing manhunts for piracy sources? No, you probably don't have to be worried about that too much, except Nintendo. Yeah, so I'll answer this in reverse. Like, in general, most of the industry, their old games, they don't care. They just don't care. I mean, and even EA, Ubisoft, they give them away for free sometimes, and because they know they can't. The amount of money they're going to get from it are just pennies to them. That it's just not even worth their time. So, and the manhunts for piracy, I think those are dying down. Yeah, that's why it's. That's part of the. Actually, the more I've learned about it, the less I'm thinking that's the primary reason. With the sort of online only model, yes, piracy is part of that because a lot of games you can stop 100% with piracy like that. Um, the what? Yeah, I'm losing my thoughts here. I should probably try to wrap this up in a little bit, but I'll go to live questions in a minute. Just give me a second. I had a lot of questions this time. The piracy. See, one way they can stop piracy, but I'm thinking it's more because it gives them total control to monetize it even harder. So, I mean, you can never point to piracy as a cause of free-to-play games dying, really. So what do I think is next? I think the streaming stuff, I have no idea how practical it is. Like, they're certainly going to try, but there really are technical barriers for that catching on. I could see that going either way, to be honest. I mean, not completely for all the industry. They're certainly going to try, some companies, but that could end up being a big flop. And then what you're going to see, I think what you are going to see though is the online only, zero ownership of games. They're going to go at that as hard as they can because there's not enough pushback on that. I feel like I have one shot at this, which I'm going to try to implement over time eventually to try to push back because, hey, pushback is actually possible. If you look at things like, hey, Belgium's pushing back on loot boxes. We'll see how that goes. If they're successful, boy, that's going to scare off everybody else. So I'm hoping I can end up having eventually some kind of victory similar to that, where it's not like everybody everywhere bans it. It's just like one country or like European Union or Australia, they push back at it. They're successful. They make it illegal. Then the companies see that in the market, like, oh, geez, guys, we can't keep doing this because we won't be able to. The money we get from it isn't worth it compared to losing out on this big market or something like that. So, yeah, somebody's saying Diablo Immortal provides pushback. The pushback successes are so few and far in between, though, because, they're going to push back against mobile, I think, because it's a different demographic for the most part. The people who play deep experience games versus one. Well, I don't know. There's some by mobile. I guess like most phone games. That's a better definition because you have plenty of good stuff on, I would say Nintendo DS and some on Game Boy Advance. I mean they're lower production quality because of the technology, but they were full games. I mean they're. Let's see. So, but yeah, that's what I think is next. Is I feel like the industry hasn't hit its peak for how much they're kind of try to monetize everything. They're still hungry for that. I don't think there's been enough pushback to make them. They're trying. See, what they're doing right now is they're testing the waters. Like, what can we get away with? Or if we can't get away with it, okay, that game flopped hard. But what if we try it again in 3 years and just do it softer or something So they're just trying to, whatever they can get the maximum amount of money on in the short term. So obviously not long term. So yeah, they're remove all ownership. Where it's going, AAA games are going to remove all ownership for the most part, with a few exceptions, like maybe CD Projekt or Rockstar or whatever. And indie games will probably just kind of look similar. Some of them will be online only, but probably not ones that don't need to be. Not that any of them need to be, but single player ones for the most part. For multiplayer, they'll probably take the path of least resistance, which I think is central servers now. So maybe not. It's hard to say, but geez, too many questions. Okay, guys, I'm going to overwhelm okay, but these are good questions. So I'll do 3 more from the pre-submitted chat, then I'll take a few from the live chat because I'm just getting worn down. Okay. He's mentioning how I mentioned before that I had depression in the past, major depression. Could you give some tips and advice to people in the same boat? What helped you? Well, it's going to be different for different people. See, for mine, it was a state of anhedonia where I literally was like not experiencing happiness from things that would make me happy. So it was almost like my personality was being erased. So like my only motivations in life at all were just physiological things like, food, sleep, thirst. It was stuff like that because that doesn't go away depression. But like the thought of playing a game or watching a movie, I'd be looking forward to reading a book or just anything. It just had as much appeal as doing the dishes. So it's like it was just like okay, whatever. It just had it just had nothing appeal. It was really alien, honestly, for me. So the what ended up getting me out of it, what ended up being the right medication, because I saw a psychologist, talked about some things. It didn't really do much for me, and then later they prescribed Prozac for me, and I tried that for 6 months. It didn't really do anything. Then they prescribed Wellbutrin, and like within a week or two, I was like, getting a new job, like kind of moving out, doing other stuff. So that jump started something with me, and then eventually, later, like a couple of years later, I very carefully experimented with going off of it, and I was pretty much fine. So that's my case. For other people, maybe it is like a lack of like, meaningful social contact or just their future is in question. So the depression is actually a natural, completely natural response, in which case they just, maybe medication would help as like sort of training wheels to get them into a situation where they can fix their core problems. For others, maybe they just need someone to talk to, or others have different like conditions. So, it's not a one size fits all solution. It's, for major depression, the symptoms are different. So it's tricky to get. And the thing is, I was lucky enough that I had, my parents were willing to fund some of that. It wasn't over the top expense, but they were seeing like it was getting bad enough that it was maybe worth experimenting with, because like in USA especially, mental health treatment isn't cheap, but you might be able to find some resources online for that sort of thing. Not for the medication. Well, maybe if you want to go dark web for the medication, I don't know. But for psychological help, you might be able to find some free resources out there, I'm sure, now. So I guess start by just trying to get some flavor of diagnosis, or do your own research on it to see where you use your intuition to see what sounds like might exactly be like the cause of your problems. Could be multiple things. And just, if you suspect it might be something that lines up with your research shows, try to get help along those lines. If it is physical, at some point you probably will have to see a psychiatrist, but then at least you can try to make that, have done the footwork beforehand and make it count. So, or for a more economical approach to it. Okay, so that's one, two more from the chat. I'm just gonna pick two. Okay, I still plan to do something with The Last Stand Union City. My plans got derailed. I'll give that as a freebie. What's the one thing that makes you most unsure about the videos? I guess the flow of them, or like with timing. That makes me most unsure about the videos. The flow of them, or doing timing. Look, I know for a fact I've cut corners on some of the game dungeons with the editing and the timing. It's not that I didn't know what to do or that I purposefully did it that way. It's that I was so pressed for time, I didn't have the time to run through an extra complete run through carefully to see, you know what, filmmakers will understand this, or video editors. This may surprise some people in the audience. Sometimes as much as like 2 or 3 frames longer or shorter on some cuts for comedic effect or just the flow of things can make a big difference. It really can. Or just, so sometimes I'll look through and like, oh no, that should have cut a little sooner. Or no, I should have given myself just a tad more time. Just the flow of it. That's the thing that can make me kind of uncertain about it. I mean, of course, writing is super important, but usually if I'm getting to the point of the video, I already have hopefully nailed out most of my nagging doubts, but it's always an option. I mean, not option, a possibility. Okay, I'm gonna skip the game specific question because it's running so long. Somebody's asking about another game I haven't played yet, so that's easy skip. Okay, this is a long one. Okay, he's asking how I feel about emulation regarding preventing a game from dying. Oh, okay. He's saying, okay, yeah, I guess we'll end with that one then. He's saying that the accomplishments, not to mention which. Okay, no, I see. I'm trying to speed read and then I failed at it. Okay, so now I need to read this carefully. A lot of games made for older consoles don't get a re-release on PC or even newer consoles, which means if you didn't buy the console and the game at the time, then, you know, it's tough. Since the IP belongs to the publisher and there's no law requiring to keep the entire library up to date. Again, I feel like, yeah, okay, so it's what I said earlier. I'm absolutely for it. I mean, and hey, I asked you guys in the Carnival episode, like, what should the cutoff what's the reasonable cutoff point for piracy? Because I never know what to say on this. And what the internet consensus, or at least my fan base consensus, was that if they're no longer selling, if the company that made the game is no longer selling it, go ahead and pirate it, because I think I cut myself short on thought on a previous episode. You're not the only people who are losing money out are the resellers. But the thing is, they'll probably get their money anyway, because say you're just somebody who wants to just play the game. You don't care about, not only do you don't care, but you don't want to have to spend like $300, $500 on a game because it's so rare to be able to play it. Whereas a collector, you know, people with like rows of stuff behind them, oh, that's gold to them. So it's like everybody wins, is if the people who just want to play the game can just play it through emulation, and then the people who want like the authentic experience, or the collectors, you can save more games for them so that more of them have access to it. So again, it's an everybody wins kind of situation. So, I mean, I think there's probably like I think there's a statute of limitation too. Like, it shouldn't be like the day after they stop selling, because maybe they're just trying to like restructure things or get a new publisher or that sort of thing, or work out the rights. But, you know, if it's been several years, I mean, I don't feel like they should lose the intellectual property, just people should be allowed to play the game, you know, that for that specific game, it can be, people have access to it. So it's some muddy waters, and this is why I just want to focus on not killing the games, because that's black and white compared to this stuff. So, okay, so that was the last one that I picked. Sorry if I missed more. People had a lot of good questions. Try again next time with those questions. Okay, I'll take some live questions, so not to just, I've been talking for an hour and no complaints from my neighbor. That's awesome. So, yeah, let's, okay, so put 3 equal signs in front of your questions. I'll get to as many as I can, although I'm going to prioritize the VR question, because he said buzzwords that got me interested, like, oh, stereoscopic 3D, VorpX, so it's like it triggered part of my brain here. Okay, he's progress on my vomit-free solution. Okay, why does the chat keep moving here? Okay, oh, okay. He's mentioning immersive theater and Vortex. Yeah, check my. I think he's asking about something I answered in the VR follow-up video that I did. So look up Russ Rant's VR follow-up or something like that. I covered it. I mentioned Vortex. It's exactly what I was talking about. Russ, what is happening with your subscription count? You used to have over 300K subs on YouTube a year ago. Now it's over 200. I don't. If I ever reached 300, I never noticed. I think it's like you might be thinking of somebody else, maybe. I remember I lost like 15,000 in one day during that time that like everybody's getting weirdness. But there was something like 15,000. But I don't know. I think let's see. What's my subscription count like here? Chris Farms channel. Let's see if it's. I remember it being like, I want to say like 210, 220 maybe. I don't know. 224. So I think it's just been growing. I don't know. I generally don't follow my statistics as well as I should just because it stresses me out and I'm doing okay. So I just figure, you know what? I'll just make the videos good. If people have a huge problem with them, they usually let me know. So it just leads me to stress looking at YouTube statistics. I'm never gonna please YouTube. I accept that, you know. Let's see. Ross, what do you think of Article 13? Yeah, that one got asked last time. It's not good, but it's such a big deal that I think if it really is as bad as it could be, then an alternative solution will emerge somehow. It's the sort of thing where, like, you know, some problems you need, like, see, the problems that never get solved are like the obscure ones, you know. If it's such a big deal that the obscure ones that don't, well, there's other problems that don't get solved too, but the fact that it could threaten so many people with that is actually a good thing because something will emerge. Because otherwise, it's just, it would ruin big portions of the internet, not just even a little bit. Are there any video game writers you think are good? You know what? There's probably tons, but I never remember the names. Although, just by coincidence, one I know of, just because I'm a big fan of the series and I think the writing is one of the strongest parts, is I think it's Amy Hennig that she did like the Legacy of Kain series, although that might have more to it. And I think I only know her from the Legacy of Kain because she did I think Uncharted, which I haven't played series. So, but I love the Legacy of Kain writing. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed System Shock 2's writing. Let's see. Well, it was good though. Extremely depressing. Was it Harlan Ellison had a hand in the Have No Mouth and I Must Scream for the game version also. But okay, somebody's asking me about trance. I'm so far behind on names and artists, so I gave a few in that Life is Strange video. I need to catch up badly. Do you think you'll ever cover? Yeah, do you think you'll ever cover total conversion mods that are comparable to full games in terms of content and polish? Yeah, that's definitely something I could do. Somebody's asked if I've heard of Pony Island or the Hex. I have heard of Pony Island. That's one where they they do a twist on it, I think. Would you consider doing a game dungeon on them? Not top of my list or anything. What are your thoughts on meta games in general? You know what? I feel like this may sound crazy coming from me. I feel like I never know what's going on with the culture to really appreciate meta games on the level they're intended. I just tend to take games at face value. So if there's like all this hidden message stuff and everybody says, oh, it's so great, it's so clever because of this and what's going on with that stuff just goes right past me because I don't have the cultural frame of reference. Like I think, what was it? Spec Ops: The Line was kind of like that for me. It's like, oh well, it wasn't bad. It was kind of that one maybe could get a video from me, but apparently, see, I hadn't played all these games that was that was a meta game connected to, or I think Undertale was supposed to be like that. So it's like I rarely know the references to these meta games that are like have a mess. I mean, I know them I might know them if it's just like a gameplay thing, like Strafe had a joke on one of their trailers where they're dropping all these Unreal Tournament references to it, or like Iron Maiden. I can tell they're trying to like channel Duke Nukem 3D. So, but there's no like deep message to that. I can see where some influences are coming from sometimes. So, I'm probably the worst person to cover metagames, unless you want like metagames from someone oblivious to the meta part of it. It's just not something I've ever really. Yeah, apparently, I think I learned after the fact some of Life is Strange is like that. These things are just. It's just doesn't even connect with me almost every time. So. Have you ever played any of the F-Zero games? I think I played some of the first ones. Those look pretty cool. I love the Mute City music. But yeah, I like futuristic racing games, sure. Although that's probably one, maybe that got better with the 3D stuff, because, man, 3D is one, racing games are one genre where, man, 3D made a big difference. It was much better in 3D than compared to like the 2D sprite overlays and stuff like that. I'm so far behind on the chat now, I'm sure. What do you think about grand strategy games? It's the same thing. Like, if I like it, first off, it all depends on the theme. So if it's some space thing, I might get into it. They tend to be, I just tend to never get to them because there's so much you have to learn to get to them. But it's like I want to like them and I may eventually get to them, but I haven't really gotten to them. So there's a chance, Thoughts on the Fallout 76 train wreck? I watched a video on that, or actually I listened to it when I was doing one of my hikes. Yeah, actually this guy was pretty funny. It was something like It's a Gundam or something like that. It had Gundam in his name. I liked his presentation style. He made me laugh at one point just with his delivery. But it sounded really bad. I'm surprised it was so bad. And you know what? One line I keep hearing, across multiple people, like, modders can't save you this time because you're making it online only, which means you gotta lock this stuff off. Maybe it'll get better, but God, it's something like It's a Gundam or I'm a Gundam or something. I'm sure somebody will correct that. Man, he made it sound bad. Like he was saying something like, this is Bethesda we're talking about. This was saying, well, imagine if they made cars. He was saying if Bethesda made cars, the leadership would be arrested for causing a freaking genocide because they wouldn't be able to meet these standards for safety and everything. So, you know what? Look, bad games come out. Companies make bad decisions. it's the sort it's the sort of thing where, hey, you know what? Maybe I'll still play it with all these flaws if it gets down to like $3 or something like that. Or when there's just like a super sale. And you know what's great? Because I mentioned this on one of the Dead Game News things about that claim it'll last forever. Boy, this having a terrible launch will really put them to the test. Because if it's a great game everybody loves, then forever takes a longer time to see how long that really lasts. But boy, what a great game to test that statement. What a great game to test that statement. Are they going to keep this running forever? So, okay, somebody's saying I should review Yakuza for Christmas. I think I may actually have one planned this time. So, are there console games you can't bring yourself to play because of a lack of mouse and keyboard? Well, usually it's me lacking the console, but even if I had it, I'd say probably first-person shooters would do that to me. Because if I have to aim, it's like not only am I at a disadvantage from the gamepad, but me personally, I'm much worse. So anything where I need careful aiming, I think. Okay, somebody's asking the question I answered at the beginning. I can skip that. Okay, open world games are flooding the market. What kind of game do you suggest that manages to offer a believable world to explore? That's too vague a question for me, because you're talking about like what themes or like what particularly suits open world. I don't know. I feel like it's something I've sort of answered before. I have heard of Arx Fatalis. I've played part of it. I still need to finish it. Card games. Do you think there will ever be a world where I just buy all the cards in the game when I buy the game? Maybe some indie game could do that. Otherwise, no, never. Maybe some smaller scale indie game could get away with that. That's it. Oh, again, somebody's dropping buzzwords I like. Escapism. Old games felt more like other worlds, and modern graphics get more and more photorealistic. Do you think this counteracts escapism because it draws you more and more back to reality? I personally miss the graphics of the 95 to 2005 era where video games felt more like video games instead of reality simulations. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think there really is something to that, because like when you're when the fidelity's rougher, your imagination kind of kicks in a little more. And I was actually thinking about that, with the games industry saying, oh, we can't afford to make these games because the cost have risen so much. It's like, man, I know I'm the minority, but I'm wondering how big a minority it is where, you know what? I'd love it if you guys could just like do a full effort on gameplay, the writing if it's applicable, music and everything, and just cut your corners on the graphics. Give us a game looks like it came out 2002 or something like that, or maybe like early PlayStation 2 level era or something like that, or late PlayStation, maybe a little bit better. How much would that make those kinds of games viable? Because hell, I'd love that. I mean, because for me, it's like just a filter. I don't care usually with the graphics. If it has good art design, I'm in. Pixel graphics, fine. Early blocky graphics, if it's real early, you got to be smart with it. But again, once you get to like mid 2000s or earlier, sure, yeah. Let's see. Even some PlayStation era stuff. If you get rid of the wobble, it's not bad. So yeah, I'm all for it. This is why I'm I'm not worried about like the resolution stuff on VR. Okay, man, this is getting real long. Okay, I'm just gonna. Sorry to cut you guys short. That one question ate up all the time. I'll do two more. I'll pick two more. Okay. Let's see. Stations. And then now silence because I'm picking out the questions. Have you ever had a near-death or otherwise really dangerous situation? Sure have. Let's see. Is the scar showing up on the camera? It's a bit too bright, it looks like. And then I have the scar on my neck. I always forget which side it's on. Maybe. Wait. I think it's, yeah, there it is. So yeah, I almost died from that sucker. I don't know if I've had any other quite near-death experiences, although on bicycle, I remember like I went over a piece of terrain. I was going pretty fast, and I went over a piece of terrain where it kind of surprised me, and that almost could have taken me out into traffic from a car going the other way. So yeah, that got my blood pump. I mean, I've been bicycle accidents, but those were just bloody messes, not life-threatening. So yeah, okay, so that's one. And I'll try to at least read through all the others. Oh, sure, I'll answer that one. Why not? Has your wife... Wait, now I lost. Does your wife play video games? Any co-op recommendations? Yes, she plays them, but it's weird. You know, I think she used to play a few more different ones, but now she's just sort of fallen into what I would say a whirlpool of Guild Wars 2 and Minecraft. She should be a streamer. She's kind of has her anxieties about that, so I'm not gonna push her. But I think I played enough Minecraft to get into it. Guild War. I mean, I played enough of Minecraft to see mostly what I want to see. I'm not really as interested in now. And Guild Wars 2 never really quite grabbed me. So we actually don't do much co-op. You know, it's annoying for Destiny 2 because that went free or no, free to own for 2 weeks. I'm afraid it's over now. I put it on my Twitter. I grabbed the copy and then I told her, you know, you might want to sign up for it. You might be interested in this. I don't know. She's real picky with games. She wants ones that kind of hit a certain vibe she's looking for. So I make recommendations when I can. But so she tried to sign up, and then it wanted her SMS. I was like, wait, what's going on? She didn't want to give them her phone number because she cares about, you know, her privacy and that. It's like, well, it didn't do that to me. It turns out if you hadn't created a BattleNet account beforehand, but before November, then you had to use an SMS and they get your phone. So again, this goes back. Companies are trying to get everything they can with the monetization. See, they're starting it off with a free game. So, and there's going to be people who carry their water for them saying, oh, well, it's free. Well, you don't have a right to complain. Oh, yeah, it's free. But then they're going to try it with something else, and then they're going to try it with something else until it gradually encroaches. Whereas if you were like a staunch rights activist on this, you would say, no, they shouldn't even have like the right to do that, to have that as a wall for anything maybe other than tech support or something, because you know they've already crossed the line even though they're offering you a free game. So what we're gonna do is we'll just share my account with her. Like I'll probably play through the game, then I'll let her play through it, and hopefully they don't do that crap like in The Crew and Darkspore where you can only play through it once. So yeah, okay. So let me just. Those are the last two. Let me just read through the questions to see if anybody asked an amazing one that I can't let go. Okay, that's an easy one. I'm very patient with buying my games. Somebody's asking how patient. Okay, well that's an easy one. I never really did StarCraft 2 multiplayer actually. However, I beat the whole single player on, was it brutal difficulty? The highest one they have. I beat every. I didn't, not the first try, but you know, I, I I don't know. That one didn't grab me as much for start. I don't know. Maybe I should try doing it more for multiplayer. It's like I can get kind of. With real-time strategy games, sometimes if I get overwhelmed, I like being able to pause it, and that's death in multiplayer. So. Okay, I think I'm gonna end it here. Man, 3 hours. Jeez, my voice. Well, I guess the people who are still around weren't don't have a problem with that. So this is why I hide the previous chats so people they don't clutter up the channel. Yeah, I gotta finish treating the sound for the room because I had a delay, and Freeman's mine coming. And I'll probably be getting some hate mail for the capitalist question. That's my analysis. I'm not, all that stuff's bigger than me. It's all bigger than me. So I'm not, it's not my cause or anything. In fact, I'm even aware of how the dead games thing I'm doing, it's kind of quixotic in its sense. So but believe me, I'm a bread and circuses. Okay, guys, that's it. I'll see you later.